Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dude Talk. I am your very enigmatic host, Alien Joyful, but you may call me Marie. I am joined today by.
And I am Shiny. I suppose I stream video games on occasion, and also I edited this video you're now listening to.
Go, I gotta go.
I am Iconic Boar 097. Just call me Iconic for short. That's what everyone calls me. I am a occasional streamer, usually of Yu-Gi-Oh. I do very very bad decks because I refuse to use the meta. Because uh, professional muscle girl enjoyer and lover of cats. Oh, and cheerleader hype man.
And of course.
I'm Cord. I go by the Galleon's Nest on basically everything. I am your local bird enjoyer, and I do all things bird and friendship related in terms of art. So that is my main prerogative right now. But I also talk about video games. How about y'all?
And Mew.
I am Mewmoonstar, your marketing professional and unprofessional, and I guess I also do art. Either way, just call me Mew.
Alright, so, video games. MMOs and the fact that they've come back from the dead to haunt me once more. I figured since some of us have a history with this and some of us don't, we could just kind of go over what we kind of know about MMOs, what brought us into it, and and then just kind of get going on why the fuck are they coming back now, and what that means.
I mean,
You know why they're
personally-
coming back now.
Do we?
You've seen Facebook's rebrand as they try to hide from their crimes. We know what's happening.
I
Love.
mean, I guess, but that
bring us
doesn't
to the
explain
meta.
why suddenly people want MMOs again.
I mean, it does make a certain degree of sense. Again, over the last many years, we've just had so many big open world pseudo RPG games, and really, at the end of the day, isn't that just what an MMO is with a multiplayer aspect? So, all
Yeah.
that makes sense. I mean, I remember, way fucking back in the early 2000s, just playing random fucking browser MMOs and just, whatever the hell was, there. What the hell was it called? Adventure Quest, Dragon Fable, there was
yeah.
Maple Story.
Those are actually
Oh
what
God,
got
oh
me
no,
into it as
I'm
well.
gonna have to bring up Roblox, and that's a problem because
Oh, by-
that
by all-
brand
by
actually-
all
By
means,
all
by all
means,
means.
broach
Never
that
been for
fucking
bad
white whale.
reasons.
Go nuts. Cause I ain't touching. I
Oh,
don't
I
know shit about
completely
Roblox.
forgot about that.
I don't know shit
I
about
did
Roblox.
play an MMO. I did for years.
All I know
I would
about
have to
Roblox
talk about Adventure
is,
Quest a little, too.
I
mean,
it's very blocky.
I guess look at it this way, right? A MMO is just a massive multiplayer online game.
Wow,
So Roblox,
you literally
Roblox
just
does qualify under that umbrella,
Very much does.
I'm about
you
to
know,
talk
my
about Adventure Quest a
experience
little.
with MMO started the exact same way
At
Shiny's
first.
did. It was Dragon Quest, Dragon Fable, all those weird browser MMOs, and I got really addicted to it.
You mean Adventure Quest.
Really fast. Yeah, Adventure Quest. I got really addicted to it really fast, but I had no one to play with, and socializing was literally hell because early 2000s. Everyone remembers their parent being like, "Don't give any online personal information out, or you'll get tracked down and murdered." So I was like,
Also, let's be
okay, I
real.
can't talk to anyone on this.
In the 2000s, you can pay for a goddamn WoW subscription while you're doing school shit.
Yeah, that's what I used to know. Like proper MMOs that had a subscription is they're the video games that cost even more money. Therefore, I will never be able to play those.
That's right. You had to
Same.
buy a fucking you had to buy the game
You had to
and
buy,
then you buy
yeah,
the
then you
subscription.
had to buy
box
the
game, and then
subscription,
you would
and-
have to convince your parents to give their money online
The
in the
pre-virtual age.
pre
yep.
2010s, and you know none of our parents were doing that shit.
Okay, but the
Absolutely.
real
Yeah.
question is, where are my fucking Club Penguin bitches at? Because
Not here.
that was
I
where
didn't
I
hear
was.
I touched a clip.
You see, I
once.
wish I got into that, but I never did.
course you
Oh,
did.
I
you
just
missed
admired
such
it in the
glorious
distance.
times.
Seems fun. But I never actually got into any sort of MMOs that were basically just chat rooms with steps.
That's fair.
Chat rooms with extra steps.
I
What
will
about
shamefully
your
admit I have seen a Habba
IMVUs,
Hotel. I have interacted
Your
with it.
Habba hotels, I didn't do that shit. I was scared.
Habba Hotel
Also, they bored me.
Habba Hotel terrified me because of the whole idea of, oh, you go on there to interact with people, because again, 2000s, my parents never touched a computer, were like, it'll kill you. Computer evil. Everyone on the computer evil. So
I mean,
Club
it
Penguin
will. Didn't you see such glorious scams as download RAM?
I think you mean download free music here. Trust me, it's not malware or porn.
It usually wasn't.
It
was usually porn. That's true.
Yeah, exactly. It was usually porn. Come on, let's be real here.
Is that really malware, or is that just getting like a bonus? Like you were ordering a cake, but you got a sandwich instead.
If I want a cake, give me a fucking cake. Don't give me a sandwich. Don't give me a hot dog. I didn't want to see that. But no, Club Penguin was great. Mostly for the mini games, actually. I was addicted as shit as those. Adventure Quest World was 100% my first like big MMO thing. And then I never touched another MMO again because, like Mew said, it was like, hey mom, buy me this game and then also pay for a subscription? Fuck no.
Yeah,
which is, I
Adventure
think, why
Quest
they
is
died.
where...
I feel like that's 100% why MMOs died.
Yeah.
Adventure Quest was up there for me too. Even though I didn't really play with it that often, I do remember one of my friends convinced me to like try it out because like, oh, that's really cool. Play around with that for a little while. Try out some of the things. I was bad at it. I was like 9 playing that, and then I was like, actually, nah, I have better things to do. Like play with my toys.
Damn toys. God.
I love playing with my Mario and Sonic toys.
I need you guys.
Oh, that's right. You guys in America get that.
I don't remember
Colin
that
and I had / still have Bakugan.
Oh god, Bakugan.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're shaking hands right now. Bakugan was the
shit. I
right?
was boring. I was just the Yu-Gi-Oh kid.
Yeah.
And all the card games are varying things. I played Magic once. It was really, really annoying to just sit there and do nothing.
My brother was big into Yu-Gi-Oh and Beyblade, and I hated the Beyblades because those things would fucking take out your ankles.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I started the Beyblade
why the
trend at my
Bakugan are more
school.
approachable.
But I need you guys to tell me.
Oh no.
I want to know whether I'm just the weirdest, oddest man out here. Did any of you guys play Fusion Fall?
No.
Absolutely.
We have experience with the Fusion of the Falls.
I wanted to. I should have. I never did.
It was so good.
Me neither.
Fusion Fall was actually the coolest early 2000s. Well,
you guys
mid 2000s.
Me and Johnny played it recently.
Fusion Fall was my first.
Because Fusion Fall, like, look at it this way: you're like a teenager, kind of around there, like getting close to like being an adult, like being like, you know, you're in an impressionable age, and so you're like, I like Kids Next Door. What if Kids Next Door, those kids were like 15, and like everybody else was like 15, and every Cartoon Network character was just in the fucking game, and there were like really cool maps that were based on like random locations throughout the cartoons that were barely explored in the cartoons, but now you can go around them in like a 3D environment. It was sick. It was like Megas XLR, the MMO.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds so cool. Especially since those cartoons from that era had really cool world building for no good reason, really.
For real, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was weird.
Like, K&D has so much lore for just almost no reason.
Oh, absolutely.
They have it based on
cool.
the moon.
It's so funny how much, like, Kids Next Door had so much lore, and they had, like, this big old story, and, like, some of it doesn't make sense, and then some of it does make sense, and then there was that whole pilot that they were supposed to do for the sequel series that never got greenlit, where number 1 became evil, and it's like, man, I wish that came through. That would have been so cool.
No, it was looking up that thing that you're talking about right now. I'm sorry, I started my sentence with no in saying that. I looked into that project, and that's how I remembered all this lore and shit, because part of like that pitch is really like all of this world building and stuff. I'm like, oh my god, yeah, this was here the whole time, wasn't it?
Yep.
You're crazy. I like you.
Your funny words, Magic Kids.
I mean, if we see a revival of any show, that show definitely needs some fucking revival, a la Samurai Jack. Like that would be really cool.
I know that the creators have still been pushing for it.
If they brought back, if they revived,
no, that's like that guy's baby.
Yeah, if they revived it and properly did Galactic K&D, that would have been cool. That would be so cool.
I did some cursory research on dead MMOs, and I even found out things like the Pirates of the Caribbean MMOs.
Oh, I vaguely
has a dedicated fan base running servers for it. Like you can still play that.
You just unlocked like a hidden memory that I completely forgot about.
I didn't play MMOs. Anyways, Johnny Depp though.
I wasn't hard enough to do that, but I had there was a kid on my block who was like trying to be the cool kid who had access to like stuff like that, GTA and stuff like that. And I would just sort of like look and be like, "Whoa, what's going on there?" I'm scared, but intrigued. Especially since I was like 8. I got banned from his house because he played GTA in front of me when I was 8, and mom was like, "No, no."
Crimes of
Wow.
God, imagine
Learning
the
all the
GTA
deep lore.
2.
imagine the parents used to be worried about the blocky ass GTA like Vice City.
Oh god, yeah.
It's crimes. She's 8.
Listen, it can't be as bad as being banned from video games Monday through Thursday for 4 years straight.
Lordy.
I mean,
What?
And your only
specific
access to video games
punishment?
during that week was VTech games.
ah.
My original access to
incredibly
video
specific
games
punishment.
was, here's a
I know.
GBA. Go nuts.
Same.
No,
Failed the first grade,
GBA was
and then
the
my
first
mom was like, "Hey,
console I
do
had
this."
access to
I was
too.
given the GBA, I was given a copy of Yellow, and I was told go. And
I
I was
was-
like, I don't know English. What am I actually doing?
Oh god.
You had Pokemon as your first as well.
Yeah, I had
We
Ruby.
got a GBA with. Actually, our first was the GBA version of Link to the Past. So
Sick.
for several years, I thought that was a that Link to the Past was a GBA game, and when people talk about it on SNES, I was like, huh, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the first things we did was go to a GameStop, and then we got Pokemon Fire Red and Pokemon Emerald.
I got my brother's hand-me-downs because he was like, we need to introduce you to video games. Because at that point, all I had ever done was watch him play games and be like, can I play? And he was like, no. Because girls can't play games, which was
Also, we
sadly just a marketing thing. And so eventually he was like, here's Ruby. And then he was like, do you
I'm very
also want to
lucky.
play farming game? And I was like, farming game. And then I like ordered online the old GBA copy of More Friends in Mineral Town and got super addicted.
I mean, if we want to be very technical, like my first experience with video games was Tekken 2. And having replayed that game relatively recently through Tekken 5, because you can do that because every fucking Tekken game's on that game, it's pretty sick. That game sucks. Yoshimitsu's broken.
Excellent.
That game is awful.
Perfectly balanced. Perfectly
all
I
things should
balanced.
be.
wanted to bring up real quick, since Marie casually mentioned girls can't play games, which was actually a pretty big thing back then. I
Yep.
got really lucky, and I never encountered that. It helps that my entry was not only Pokemon, but specifically Pokemon Emerald, and then pretty quickly the 4th gen of Pokemon, which all have Pokemon contests, which is one of the most like video game styles or gameplay elements I've ever seen. So I never got that shit. I was just like, yep.
I
I
actually
play
kind of
video game.
disagree on that. Like new Pokemon contests, sort of. I guess Gen 4, yeah, but original Pokemon contests were like this hyper complicated fucking talent show system that was like super hardcore for no reason. And that kind of still transferred
you gotta
to Gen
understand
4, but there were like little...
That I was watching the anime at the same time, and it was
Ah,
always
okay,
the
fair enough.
female
Yeah, in that case.
companion who would do contests, and they always involved a dress-up element.
Yep.
Therefore, I was just like, this is a femme thing, this is a girl thing. I was like, okay, I'm ready.
Well, for me, it's just like I had an older brother who didn't want me to play Street Fighter with him because I would always pick Chun-Li and just beat the nightmare out of him. So he was like, I don't want to play with you. Girls aren't supposed to play games. I saw on the dumb commercials, because that was just back then. And then later he was like, my mom was like, but if you make your sister play video games, you'll have someone to play with. And he was like, oh my god,
The
you're
player 2
right.
syndrome.
So he was like,
You
I need a
cracked
player
the
2.
code.
So he went from don't play games, it's gross and you and you're not supposed to you need to play games. And I was like, what's happening?
Oh yeah. The other big part of the puzzle, which is why I never really experienced girls don't play video games until I got really heavily into the internet, was I am the big sibling. So,
Yeah.
of course, girls play video games, and I know the things, and I help my brother. figure
Yeah, no, I
things
have
out.
like 3 older brothers, so the testosterone was strong.
Take a lot of credit there. My brother was really smart, but he still did the kid thing where it's like, help, my Charizard's level 80 and everybody else is level 20.
Okay, but who didn't do that?
Oh, I didn't do
Swampert
much better.
destroyed the Elite
I had
Four.
3 level 60 Pokemon, and then the rest were level 20.
Getting
I just
to
knew
level 80
slightly
takes
better.
perseverance, though, back then.
Oh, I know, but Swampert
Yeah.
was my favorite. He was my baby. Why the
Listen,
fuck would I
was
want to use some like little rat I picked up? Nah, Swampert's where it's the fuck
I
at.
got lucky and caught a skitty, so you know my ass was leveling that little boy up because I always, whenever I catch a cute Pokemon, it's always a boy. It's very fun.
Also, my tiny child brain didn't have any tactical experience, so it was like, potions? Nah, just live through everything.
Listen, I was a dirty Pokemon cheater because I had an action replay.
Let's
So
go.
all of my Pokemon
Oh, hell
instantly
yeah.
leveled up to like 90 or 100 with the click of a button. So that was my Pokemon experience back in the
Nice.
day.
Oh god, I'm just picturing baby Cord
Bro,
like
both.
going on Route 1 with like a team of level 90s and some little
Level
bug
90
catcher
Rattata.
being like, fight me in my like level 2 Wurmple, and fucking Cord just being like, and now you die.
I also had a cheat where I could actually
I
capture
agree.
trainer Pokemon and
Nice.
instantly end the battle.
Pokemon
It's a
Coliseum
really
every
fun
game.
cheat. How come I didn't find that? I just want to turn every Pokemon into Pokemon Coliseum. That's cool.
So I got all like the rare shit that I shouldn't have because everyone else had one, and I was like, eh.
Yep.
But yeah. that was my Pokemon experience.
have a
And then
tangent.
actually try to play more of that later on in life.
You guys played Gen 4 Pokemon, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's Diamond and Pearl, right?
Diamond and Pearl.
Yes.
Yep. Diamond, Pearl, Platinum.
Yeah, that was my first one.
Did you guys ever have a Wii as well? And did you have
No.
Pokemon Battle Revolution?
Pokemon Battle Revolution? Yes.
Yes. Okay, I can talk about that because I was on that shit constantly back in the day.
I have no idea what it is. You'll need to
All
explain
right,
it.
Pokemon Battle Revolution is basically like a Pokemon Coliseum-esque game. You're doing nothing but trainer battles, and like in several different arenas, and basically climbing to the top to become Pokemon champion of this random island or whatever. I can't remember the exact story, but there really is no story. You're just becoming champion on that island. The cool thing about that game was that you could transfer your Pokemon from Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, and I found this out like a few months later. You can also transfer Pokemon from Heart Gold and Soul Silver into there. So, you got a really kick-ass team of Pokemon. Transfer them to your Battle
By
Revolution game.
kick-ass team, I think you mean Rayquaza, Groudon, Arceus, Giratina, and
Did you just
Dialga.
call him Rayquaza?
Excuse you. This is erasure of my
Rayquaza.
Empoleon.
Oh, I thought you said Rayquaza, and I was like, it's Rayquaza.
Rayquaza, yeah.
Rayquaza.
Technically, it's Rayquaza.
Oh god,
You
don't
say
don't.
that. Don't weeaboo this fast.
Okay, but
Not on our first episode.
but it was
Cord.
yes.
I want to bring up. You do that until you hit the specific Coliseum leader who has the roulette mechanic where you
Dude,
have
okay.
to.
All right.
Yeah.
I hated that one so much, but I played it so much to where I got it down to a science. I knew when to drop my fucking pins or whatever, and then like get the Pokemon that I wanted on my team and everything. I got that shit down to a science, and I kicked ass
Oh, no,
after
you
like
need to
a month of doing
understand.
that.
What I did, because I had the action replay, is I just went out and got a random ass team of things that were decent, but not crazy good. Like a licky, I think like a clam pearl, and like I used the rare candies cheat to level them all up to 100, so they'd be good enough to go into the Coliseum. So I just have random bunk ass teams for both of us. So it's like, let's go.
Nice. That's one way of doing it too. But I also had like the guidebook too. So I got to know which trainers I was gonna fight against. I knew all their moves, I knew all their weaknesses and stuff. I read that book so much to the point that freaking fourth grade me was a Pokemon genius. I knew everything about Pokemon at the time before I eventually forgot how anything worked because I ran off the Pokemon train eventually.
Okay, y'all
But-
just gave me two thoughts with this little tangent. One, God, remember the times when we used to get like booklets
I
with your
remember
video
guidebooks in
games?
kiosks. Yeah, that
They
was
were
that
they're
fun.
so good. And two, all this talk of Pokemon, specifically because we started this talking about like co-op and MMO and stuff like that, just has me thinking, do any of you guys know about the weird MMO co-op Pokemon fan game? Because me and
Yes.
Shiny played it, and it was chaotic as hell.
Murdering Blue
Yeah.
with his like
Alright.
Raticate with a double team is funny.
Oh god, yeah.
Right, like back in the day, with my friend, we picked it up because we were interested in it.
Yep.
It was very buggy, by the way.
It is.
Oh,
when
it's
came
so
out.
buggy.
Still very buggy.
But it was interesting to play a co-op Pokemon game like that.
I mean,
I
think
never
what makes
got
it
far because I'm pretty
interesting-
sure I only played it for an hour, and that's
I think what
about
makes it
it.
interesting is like it's not a fan game, right? It's literally just like it's Gen 1 through 4, I think, maybe 5. And it's just like the maps. So we did I think we just did Kanto. And so,
think so, yeah.
we went like all the way up to like Vermilion City.
Didn't
and-
they increase the difficulty of everything you fight because there's 2 of you?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just very easy for that reason.
Are you sure? Because I swear at one point in time the game like dropped me, and you were stuck alone.
I don't
and
think so. I don't think so. I don't think it's that like hard code. I don't know much about like where that's at now, but like yeah, that one's. I mean, fucking speaking of that, obviously like the thing that you gotta talk about when you talk about fucking MMOs and like MMOs coming back is like, yo, Game Freak, Nintendo, you know, I mean, you know, it's just. And we have that Pokemon MMO already. It's been like decades
I
since
thought
we
you were
asked.
I thought you were gonna bring up Nintendo's shit online system where you like
That's whatever.
have to pay
We'll
to
deal with it.
access your own internet on your own goddamn Switch.
We'll deal with that.
We
But yeah, no, like again, it's like the Pokemon MMO just makes sense. Like it just makes sense. It's just it's an idea that somehow hasn't happened for no reason at all. Other than
Because
I
the
swear to God,
Fans
Nintendo hates
continue
money.
to try.
The closest that
I've
we
been
have to
watching
that is
some-
Temtem. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah, I think
little
that's what I've
thing.
been seeing videos of. Yeah.
That's the dancing game, right?
no,
Don't they
That-
dance?
no,
don't they
it's-
dance fight?
Don't they dance fight?
no, they don't.
Come on.
It's basically like someone's own original like Pokemon-esque
Okay.
game,
Legally
and it's legally distinct Pokemon. Yes. It looks really good. All of the fights are double battles, which means people can pair up with each other and play the
Hmm.
entire game in co-op if they wanted to. And the systems are different, so it isn't like straight one-to-one Pokemon. It looks like an interesting game, but I haven't looked past it beyond its release, so I don't know how well it's doing at the moment. But yeah. That's the closest that we have to like an actual MMO Pokemon game. And if Nintendo wants to cash in on that, they better start investing because they finally changed the formula with Arceus.
yeah.
So they should really try and do that if they want to do MMO stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Arceus, but MMO would certainly be interesting.
That'd be weird.
But also, I'm just happy that they decided to try and mix it up without just being like, but what if your Pokemon got real big or real angry or real etc. Because it's not that I had anything against the special types of like evolution or temporary power-ups in battle, but I don't know. There's something so charming about Arceus hiding in the grass, trying to catch a Psyduck, and then having an alpha for some reason spot you despite the fact that you're crouching and hunt you down to the ends of the earth.
We
So
hear
you mean like real Pokemon hunting?
We hear you loud and clear, Nintendo fans. And that's why in this Nintendo Direct, we're going to show you Mario, the MMO.
Oh my god.
Hello, Mario.
MMO.
Everyone just
MMO.
plays Toad. Everyone's
With
just
Chris-
Toad.
Mario.
And they'll have a special event where you meet Chris Pratt Mario.
Oh god, no.
God.
There would be, and I hate you for making me think about that.
You're not wrong.
It kind of was like, everyone's
Oh,
having a lovely
man.
conversation.
be
What's the
Fortnite.
most cursed idea I can throw out there?
It's possible. You know they would do it.
Actually,
all I can see is Mario Fortnite now.
God, that could be a thing that happens if Nintendo wasn't so strict on their IPs. They would literally have to do their own battle royale for that to happen, though.
I made a Mario Battle Royale and then got rid of it.
I mean, there is that. That did happen. But now we have Pac-Man 99! New replacement. Yay! That one's not going anywhere, I don't think.
You say that, but it's Nintendo. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Pretty much.
I mean, Pac-Man's technically it's Bamco, so like, who knows?
Right.
Speaking of Bamco, I believe they actually have an MMO that's coming out.
Which one was that?
It's called like Blue Protocol, I think.
It's
The name
100%
sounds
called
familiar.
Protocol,
And
right?
and it's like super like I mean, I hate to use the term, but anime. I feel like we need a better term for it. Looks like Dragon Quest. I don't know. What would you call like? I guess I mean, anime just works for the moment. But yeah, no, they have like an MMO that's like coming out. I think it's gone through like several betas. It looks pretty good, but it's weird.
I
'Cause,
am
like,
seeing things on the news that say this is not good.
sounds good.
There might be a scam related to that, but we might have to put more research into that.
Yeah, I just looked it up myself. It's got a 9.1 out of 10 rating on MMORPG.com.
Whatever that means.
It's saved for
That's
Japan
my
only
feeling
released in
to
2022.
Roblox.
Of fucking course it is.
That makes sense.
Of course it is.
I mean, that's like Dragon Quest X, right? We just don't get it. We just don't get to have it.
Hey, we eventually got PSO2. It just took 10
Million years.
15. How many years?
2020 took 8 years.
There's hope yet for the others, I guess.
I mean, it's actually that's not math. No, it is. It is math. Yeah, it came out in 2012. Yeah, no, it took 8 years. I forget Dragon Quest X is older than PSO2. That's insane.
Yeah. Wait, is it still going strong?
Yeah. It just had an expansion a couple months back. Sometime last year.
How old is?
Wait,
Wait.
Dragon
How
Quest
old is
X
Final
is
Fantasy
still on?
14?
Final Fantasy 14 is from.
I'm trying to big brain this. Like, which one's the oldest? Out of all the like, which MMOs?
I think 14 is also from 2012, and then it was rebooted in Realm Reborn in 2014.
Huh. Because I'm trying to figure out which MMO
Dragon
is
Quest X.
the oldest and managed to survive the lull of MMOs and now is enjoying the resurgence. And like, it's like Dragon Quest X survived. WoW somehow survived.
Since 2010.
PSO survived. What actually died?
A lot of MMOs have died.
I think you already
A
got
lot.
it, but FF14 released 2010, rebooted 2013.
Like Fusion Fall, like we
Toontown
discussed
died.
earlier, is
Yeah,
like an
yeah.
MMO that died.
And Club Penguin eventually shut
And Club
down.
Penguin eventually shuts down.
Rest in pieces.
It's the oldest one. It's
The
definitely
Lord of the
not
Rings
14.
Online eventually dies.
I forgot about that. There's
Yep.
also from my
Skyrim
cursory
Online
research for something else.
survived.
There was a
Yeah.
Matrix Online for a while.
Oh, true.
Oh my
There was a
god.
Shiny, you know more about it than me. Was Dragon Ball Online ever alive?
No, not
That's a
not
good-
necessarily ever alive because it was one of those like region locked games.
Yeah.
I feel bad because once you brought that up, my brain was like, yes, it was alive. No, that was the Boruto game.
The
Well,
Boruto game.
we may have not had Dragon Ball Online, but we did in fact have my fucking paralysis demon Dragon Ball Xenoverse, and it will never die. And I
Oh
hate
yeah, Xenoverse is actually a very, very good thing to talk about when it comes to MMOs because I mean, Iconic fucking take it away why it's not an MMO and how it is a bad game.
It is Dragon Ball Xenoverse is it started off so humbly as such a great idea, and then it just devolved into just an actual living hell because it for those who don't know, to keep the licensing of Dragon Ball games, Bandai Namco was contractually obligated to make a Dragon Ball game every year. But as of recently, I guess that contract has become a bit looser because they've been able to make games that they could just support for a bit longer. So instead of making a game each year, it's been like every one game, a game that gets some downloadable content for a bit and keeps that alive. Originally, back in 2016, that was Xenoverse, and then they made Xenoverse 2. And 2015 was Xenoverse 1. Xenoverse 2 was 2016. It is currently 2022, and they plan on releasing more DLC for Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, even though it was released that long ago, because this despite
Jesus Christ.
despite being what is, for a better or term, a very MMO light thing, it's still like your typical Dragon Ball Z arena fighter. But it's like, oh, you can make your own character, and there's different races, and you can play with other characters, and there's drops. But it's like it doesn't play like a proper MMO. The leveling is not like a proper MMO, and the drop systems are just absolute ass. And the worst part is, while MMOs will add like new classes and like new like new environments with new missions and such. Dragon Ball Xenoverse's idea of expansions is usually adding in more characters from the anime that you're just going to steal their moves, but you're paying mostly for the character. You're playing for a whole new character. You get to play as this character, but it's like the idea is at the end of the day, you really just want to steal their moves for your own character. So that's not very MMO like. And then there are story expansions, but those story expansions are solely for single player. You can't bring in your friends with that. There's no variety with that. And it's just the most questionable thing ever because, like, you get how there's MMO inspiration for Xenoverse, and obviously, a lot of their ideas are taken from Dragon Ball Online because it was such a short-lived thing. Whether debatably if it ever lived in the first place, they had ideas for it. They had designs from Akira Toriyama. They had a story set up, but they never got to use that properly for online. So it's used in the Dragon Ball Heroes thing and Xenoverse. But where Hero keeps prospering and is on like the 30th or 50th chapter of what they had in mind for online, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 is dragging its fucking feet and is still on like chapter 3, and it's atrocious, and I am in hell.
Well, now I
God.
actually know what that is because I've been honest this entire time. Every single time you've complained about like Xenoverse, I've just kind of been like, I don't know what this is, and I don't want to touch it. I just know that it has a lot of DLC, and I'm
Yep.
gonna leave it at that. But
Well,
what
yeah.
you're telling me is that it's basically a half-baked cake of we wanted to do an MMO, but we wanted to do just like a online fighter arena, and
Yeah,
we didn't make up our minds, so we decided to do everything.
exactly. It wants to please everybody, and when you try to please everybody, you please nobody.
Listen, I played the first Xenoverse, and I got my fill out of that experience. But
Yeah,
at the same time, it was a frustrating one as well. Because it's
it's
just like,
it's so
it's,
stupid.
yeah, it just, like, it's fun, but also it's just not good.
It's not good. Like, it's so funny. Usually, when you make a sequel, the idea is to heavily improve upon the first one. When it comes to video games, Xenoverse took like a few steps forward from Xenoverse One. Xenoverse Two took a few steps forwards, and then 5 steps backwards, and it continuously keeps going backwards because the very foundation of Xenoverse as a technical fighting game MMO mix is broken at the seams. The meta of how you fight just doesn't work, and people can abuse it in hundreds of thousands of different ways. And with each DLC comes new ways to break the battle system. And like they actively don't want to fix the battle system. They just keep making it worse. You have this house that is falling apart at the seams, and every time there's a new DLC, it's like, well, the house may be falling apart, but look at this cool new hot tub, right?
Yeah. And also, does Xenoverse 2 kind of repeat the first game's story anyway? With just some slight changes?
For the most part, technically. But they did implement some new ideas, but like I said, they're still dragging their feet. Few was an idea. As an idea was cool. He's like this new character, but they've done nothing with him because there's like 50 billion more new characters in Dragon Ball Heroes that they have yet to introduce because they're dragging their feet with showing you few. And it's just like, stop, please continue. And it's so funny because like I said, even as a Dragon Ball game, it's bad because like there's no beam struggles, which is a thing where it's like, oh, they shoot a laser, the other person shoots a laser, they collide. You can't do that. That's a sin in Dragon Ball games to not have a beam struggle. And then all the DLCs, there's so many DLC characters that can't transform. They're allergic to transforming. Like they do not want to have a transformation animation. So the character will either just be in base form the whole time and can't transform, or they will forcibly always be in a transformed state. And that's very not Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is all about the stupid idiots yelling and then transforming to become stronger.
Literally, there's almost like no reason other than to play a Saiyan for the transformation
Oh,
purposes.
absolutely. That's the other thing. Unlike most MMOs where there's a case for different races and classes, it's like, oh, well, this has benefits, this has its downsides, this has benefits, this has its downsides. Dragon Ball Xenoverse is much like the fans, in which, unless you're a Saiyan, you don't matter.
Oh god.
There's so many different races. There's so many cool things you can do in Xenoverse, but none of that matters because at the end of the day, you are going to be ignored unless you play as a Saiyan because the Saiyans have the most transformations. They have a distinct advantage over other races, and while they slightly fixed it for two, in 1, it was just absolutely horrific. It's so funny. In Xenoverse 1, only the Saiyans could transform because they could transform into Super Saiyan. Everybody else got Kaioken, but that wasn't really a transformation. That was like a buff with a debuff. And
Yep.
the worst part was in Xenoverse 1, if you turned Super Saiyan, that gave you infinite super meter. Like another thing, unlike MMOs, there's no cooldown. You have a meter that you have to constantly charge on your own. And in Xenoverse 1, it was super abusable as a Saiyan. You would turn Super Saiyan and you would just have infinite meter for a set amount of time. And that's just broken. That's stupid. That is a giant disadvantage that everybody else has against the Saiyans.
This is
Yep.
Piccolo disrespect. I'm sorry. If you're not playing a pickle person and getting the respect you deserve, what is even the point of having a Dragon Ball game?
And it's so funny. And you want to know what their solution to that idea was?
What was it?
Their solution to the Saiyans being too strong in Xenoverse 1 was to give every other race a very neutral transformation that allowed them to spam their super meter as if they turned Super Saiyan.
That's
Their
not
i-
a good
their idea,
solution.
their idea was not to fix the Saiyan problem, but make everybody else as broken as a Saiyan. It's like that's not how you do
I
that.
mean, that's a
Not
type of balancing that exists in the world of video games. Why fix things when you can just make
everybody-
everyone equally broken?
if everybody
Flying back to the MMOs, just make all the numbers bigger. It'll work out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the funny
It's so
thing, right?
good.
Like, a lot of modern MMOs have done the opposite of that. Like,
Mhm.
even we can look at fucking, like, if we go back to like, PSO, when you look at New Genesis as opposed to, like, old PSO, like, the numbers are a third.
It's almost weird, honestly.
And the same goes for, like, Final Fantasy 14 now. Like, they had a recent update where they're like, yeah, numbers need to be
Yes,
smaller
but they're
because
fixing it now.
the decimals are becoming stupid.
Mhm.
Yeah, but they
they're
got
not even
stupid in the
decimals
first
technically. They're
place.
just
That's what makes
extra
it funny.
numbers. They're just bigger numbers, like 14,587. Like,
But if I'm not doing 10k damage, am I even really doing damage, though?
that's true.
I'm really
I know,
helping.
that's one of the things I have a hard time with in MMO. It's like you reach damage numbers over 1,000 and I'm just like, what am I doing? What are you
Yeah.
doing? This is dumb.
What is anybody doing?
Knock some of the zeros off for me, bud.
I mean, that's kind of what's nice about like the modern MMOs, and sort of what also was good about the old ones is like usually the writing is pretty solid, and that's kind of what keeps you going. It's kind of what makes you
Yeah.
give a shit. Not to mention cosmetics. Cosmetics that give you stats makes you feel even better, and then get a nice dopamine rush.
Or
Mhm.
just cosmetics that, like, have their own special slot, don't take any inventory space, just to make you look good. It's like, yeah, that's the good thing.
And
That's
actually,
the
when we
good
think
shit right
about it,
there.
like MMOs is kind of the start of this like random number generator BS that we are now constantly dealing with in the game industry. From fucking
Yeah.
gotcha to like loot box to
It's literally the early days of Dragon Ball where they were like, his power
Monster Hunter
level
drops.
is number, like, blah, 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 blah. Like, that is literally what it was like playing MMOs, where it's like, power levels didn't mean shit, numbers didn't mean shit, you just hit things till they die.
Absolutely.
Whereas now, you could argue that there is a modicum of strategy to the numbers and the death.
I don't like strategy. I want to hit with big
I like to turn off
hammer.
my brain and press buttons, please.
I will say this, like
This is why I'm afraid of becoming high leveled in MMOs.
when looking at
and doing
MMOs,
high-level
like when would we
content.
say they started like really coming back in force? Because to me, it was probably around like 2015, 2016 when like there was Blade and Soul. There
Yeah, I
was
was
like
literally
another
about to
one.
say Blade and Soul, and like that other, was it a Korean one?
It was probably another
I'm
Korean one,
bringing
and
up
14
Black
was
Desert Online.
14 was getting to Heaven's Ward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
everyone
don't
was kinda
actually know
talking
that
about it
much
again.
people who actually play Black Desert Online, but when its character
Yep.
creator came out, it created a big boom for
Oh,
people
yeah.
wanting to create characters in it, which
Yeah.
in turn led to some of them actually playing the game.
Imagine that.
So they tricked them into.
Is it called Lost Ark or is it just called Ark? There's another one.
I think it might be Lost
Oh,
Ark.
that Arc.
Oh, Arc?
I don't recall that.
Lost
Yeah, I
Ark?
think it's just called Arc. I'll do a quick Google.
Mew will verify.
Because there's like Ark Survival Evolved, which is not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing is, I'm like, there's the one with the dinosaurs, but I'm pretty sure that that's
I'm talking
not
about
an
I'm
MMO.
talking about the one with the ships.
Oh my god, could you imagine if fucking the one with the dinosaurs was the MMO?
I mean, heck, there was
Sure.
even
The one
that.
with the dinosaurs, I don't know if I'd call it an MMO, but it definitely has a community for
There
itself.
was even
and
that weird
that
like.
game's interesting.
I
There was
think
that
it's
weird like
supposed to be like a
airship battle
sandbox
game that kind of
Minecraft
worked like
X game,
like
so-
an MMO.
Yeah. But I remember because I got like into Blade and Soul and I played that for a while and I actually had like people in real life playing it with me and I was like, what is this? This doesn't happen. This never happened with like my old games unless it was with my brother. So it was just like this weird experience and I was like, are MMOs coming back? But then all anyone would talk about is like 14 again, as people would be like, oh, if you want like quality, you have to play
I think the
14.
answer is
And I
it's
was like,
called
I don't
Lost
have
Ark.
the money for this.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, like, there was just this resurgence of people being
I
like,
actually
oh,
know.
PSO2, oh, Final Fantasy 14,
let me
WoW
just
came back.
let me just real quick look up what expansion WoW was on in 2015.
Wasn't it the Panda one?
That
I
might
swear-
it might have
I
been
swear
Panda
to
one,
God,
and that
it was
might
the
be
one
it.
with the Panda
That
kid.
might be it. That might be why.
I swear to God, the Panda one was like 2012.
No way. WoW wasn't like.
It wasn't. Listen, I don't know. All I
Place
know
your
is that when the
bets.
Panda one
Place your
happened,
bets.
people started playing again.
No, people stopped playing.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that's when I saw like ads for it everywhere, and I was like, oh, it must be getting popular again.
It was the rough one. It was Warlords of Draenor.
I don't know what that is.
It is one that
Actually,
people weren't
I
particularly
was
happy
kind of
about.
right. Pandas
Mists
were
of
way
Pandaria
earlier. They
was
were 2011.
2010?
Yeah, 2010 apparently.
2010.
I know.
Oof.
I know that
Also,
we're
the
trying to
Panda
like.
expansion was absolutely just cashing in on Kung Fu Panda, right?
So it was
Absolutely.
2012.
Was it? I thought it was
Probably.
trying to attract furries.
It was a little bit column A, a little bit column B, but absolutely it was just Kung Fu
So
Panda.
specific that I'm like, it's just Kung Fu Panda, right? Because I
Absolutely.
remember when that came out, looking at that as a kid, I was like, why?
I mean,
Because I'd seen furry things before, and I'm just like, why are we going all in on pandas? And then I also saw Kung Fu Panda, and I'm like, I think I figured out why we're going
yeah,
all
when it
in on
comes to like,
pandas.
I can definitely equate then the kind of drop in WoW to the resurgence of everything fucking else and new things being spawned. Like there was that one, Wild Planet or something. It was called something weird. It had like
Oh, I knew
super
about that one.
quirky, dumb characters. I don't know if it's alive. I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either.
But I remember that, like getting lots of ads for that. Is it called Wild Planet? Video game. No. I don't know what it was called, but it was this weird, like, thing, and that was like, oh, you can be a gatherer, and you can be a hunter, and you can be the explorer, and it had some good ideas, but it just never really pulled any of it off.
Intriguingly enough, when MMOs started to make their
WildStar.
I think that is what it's called.
Oh,
When they were
WildStar.
making their grand resurgence, I actually went back to Adventure Quest World, like the thing that started it for me, and I was so surprised that it was still alive. And I managed to recover my like ancient account, dust it off, and run around. And I was like, oh man, I kind of missed this. But then it just like I don't know. It was almost like I hadn't been into it for so long that I couldn't get back into it. Which is actually why I'm kind of happy that they decided to make a new version of Adventure Quest that's just like on Steam. And I'm like, if you played those, just go try it out. It's actually really fun. It's really nice.
I have to
And
look
it's been
into
fun
that.
to just
It's
kind
still
of
free to
watch that
play,
happen
right?
again.
It's free to play, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's free to play, and it's actually like really, it's fun. It's kind of just a good time. It's very nostalgic, which I appreciate. And the team is putting in a lot of work to try and rebuild it, but with a new story and with new things. They're not just trying to like redo what they did. And I'm like, I appreciate this.
I think they already did have that Korn collaboration, so it's still the same fucking team.
Yeah, it's still the same team. It's the same team because all of their dev blogs are written by them, and they're talking about how they're like married now with kids, and it's like, wow,
Like, I'm
you would be, but whoa.
Like I'm pretty sure it's still Artix. Like it's still the same guy who started it all.
I would say that I could try and recover my old account, but I don't know what email it was associated with. And plus, I also used my real name as the username,
Yeah.
so I don't think I should do that.
Well, I don't even know if like Adventure Quest Worlds, the browser version, still alive.
Yeah, I think so.
Cause like I know Flash is dead, so if it used Flash, then
that's
it's
true.
dead. Yeah, because everything with Flash
God, I
is
forgot
gone
a bunch
now.
of
It
things
got
just have
nuked,
browser
which makes me really
versions.
sad.
I forgot that
Yep.
happens. Yeah, that's.
It happened 3 years ago
I know.
specifically. They like just at the very end of last year, they were like, "Hey, cool, you had like 3 years to prepare for its death. Goodbye." And it was like, "What?"
Very rude.
So I'm like, I think Adventure Quest Worlds is dead. So if you want to basically play Adventure Quest, you'd have to go with the new one that's on Steam, which again, it's good. It's 3D. It's cute and it's free.
Nice. They'll look into that then at some point.
But
No,
no,
it's
like
play with me,
alongside
Shay.
like Blade and Soul, like I said, Heavensward, like Final Fantasy 14, which is why I put Final Fantasy 14 on the map, because like, I'm sorry, A Realm Reborn is good. It is a better game. In fact, it is a game that functions and is fun to play and doesn't have the worst fucking drop rates in all of MMO existence, except for like Star Wars Galaxies back in like 2002 or whatever the hell that
Okay.
came out. But like. Heavensward definitely like. I mean, fuck. There were like articles in New York Times and shit about that game, about that expansion specifically.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
So like,
Yeah,
that was
there
kind
was
of
a bunch
the
of
big
news
thing.
about that.
And like I said, Blade and Soul happened at that
14
time.
is
Wildstar was trying to become a
interesting.
thing. It died. But there was like lots of things that like people were looking at MMOs again as like kind of an idea. And I mean, you kind of have a pseudo MMO idea again earlier in 2012, I think it was, Borderlands from Gearbox Software.
Yeah.
And like it's just so many games have like used these MMO ideas because they were good even back in the 2000s. Just none of the games were particularly amazing.
Yeah, they had fun gameplay loops, which made them easy to integrate into co-op experiences and kind of give that feeling. But they never went all the way until there was that resurgence, and everyone went, "Wait, we could like make money off this again."
And the thing is, we call it a resurgence. I'm fairly certain, as far as Asian territories are concerned, it never died.
Well, how do you think PSO2
Asia's just looking at us like,
the
huh?
Dragon Quest X survived?
Yep.
My theory is that Japan was just always riding that sweet MMO roller coaster, and it was us, the fools in the
It's
West,
also
that were like,
why
"Wait."
Sega has enough money to do anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
PSO2 also just never left.
Yeah. Actually, sort of my own theory is like, I mean, I feel like sort of the obvious answer could just be like, the internet, Twitch, everything kind of just grew faster and
Yep.
it became a lot more widespread that way. So the introduction of like live streaming and then people hopping on MMOs and stuff, spreading the news just keeps people engaged and like, oh, we should probably check that out. Because I feel like that's just the logical conclusion. And also taking regional differences into consideration as well. America has always had, or like the West specifically, I guess, always had specific taste in video games anyway. So there's always like certain brands and genres that people like more over the other. So something like an MMO, dying or like not as popular as it was back in the day is now we're finally getting that widespread information and all that genre shifting's coming around to be a lot more popular as well. So
I suppose
finally
that would
getting
explain why
PS2
WoW
West
survived in the
is
West.
a miracle.
Yep.
WoW kind of had that like more robust,
let's look at this then.
rogue, like Westish personality. It didn't look very anime, for lack of a better word. It kind of has that more almost rustic vibe, which I guess did fit very well in the West for the time, because the art style in the West was a lot more rough around the edges. And so it's
Yeah.
almost like it felt more familiar to people, I guess, whereas like things like PSO and these more Korean and Japanese and Chinese influenced MMOs were almost too polished, too foreign. And I remember the complaint that I heard a lot as a kid was, "Oh, they're too complicated. They have too many things, too many buttons, way too many menus." And it's like, I kind of get it, because PSO2 at first was way overwhelming with the amount of menus and systems you had to learn. Like, once you get it, but like there is a bit of a learning curve. Whereas
Yeah.
WoW felt very unga bunga, just go and hit things, like press buttons 1 through 4 and something will die.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole gritty factor too. That that does play a factor because if you remember the mid 2000s, you realize there was a big tonal shift in like what people wanted as video games. Because GTA happened, then we got a bunch of mature games. Brown was the color that everyone liked, apparently. I feel like another like obvious example is when
Oh
Jack and
boy,
Dax came
piss
around.
filter.
When Jack and
Oh,
Daxter came around,
Jack and
that game was
Daxter.
all
I love
bright and
Jack and
bubbly and
Daxter.
shit. But then the
Yeah.
sequel came out.
Yeah, they're like, this didn't sell as well as we want. I know how to fix it.
Yeah, literally, because it was the only way to make sure that the franchise survived at that point. So everything went
It's
gritty beyond that
absolutely
point.
my favorite
I mean,
gratification of a
let's be
franchise, though.
100% real. It was not the only way. It was the way that was going to likely make the most money, and people didn't want to take risks in the 2000s with video games because it was still a relatively new medium. That's really all it is.
But
People are just
because of that,
cowards.
It's
they
also
were
a
being
trend
cowardly.
as well.
I will defend Jack too, and let it be like, okay, we want to take fewer risks because it was still a pretty cartoony, bubbly game.
It was, though.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm just thinking, trust the two
Daxter
artists to
continued
point
to
out the brown
exist.
color scheme. Trust the artist to be like, let's
And
talk
also
about
Jack
how
and Daxter
gross the
wasn't
game's
brown.
like.
It actually had colors.
Yeah, it was.
Less colors, but colors. I was just like, yep.
Just took the
They were-
grittier route.
They were just
to
tricking
extent.
people into thinking it was a lot grittier. But yeah, everything had gray filter back then.
I am happy that we got out of that. Like, we got out of that
Thank
muddy,
God.
gray, grimy, everything is covered
Yeah.
in dust and dirt.
Because
Like,
I love a
we're allowed to
gritty
be
game,
colorful
but
now.
it's just like there are colors that exist even when war is happening. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it can be done to great
Funny
effect.
military
Like,
man.
if you have a mostly like dark and dreary game, and then certain things like a flower fucking blooming is the only thing that's like in full color, like that's cool.
Okay,
But then you made a
that's like,
choice.
That's like actual color theory. That's putting thought into like the message of your game almost. But like when everything is gray and dreary, or everything is hyper colorful pink, then like there's gonna be some problems. It's called artistic temperament or something. I don't know what it's actually called. It's called not
Not sure that's
like
right.
going
Alright,
rainbow
Resident Evil
or
5
going
with
brown.
its goddamn green tint.
The green blue tint of fucking like every game that was in the 2010s.
Watched some content about the the Need for Speed franchise, and it's like, ooh, I love the installment in piss filter.
But yeah.
Now, that's the other
resurgence,
thing.
though.
Car games have the same thing. Like, again, you can clearly see that MMOs are on fucking trend, at least as far as gaming companies are concerned, because you have stuff like The Club and, like, I think Need for Speed had, like, its, like, weird go-around, like, America mode with your friends, drive and do races and shit. Like,
Didn't Forza have also?
was it Forza? One of them had it.
One of them.
Or maybe both. Maybe all of them.
Yeah, I think like
I am
all
not
of
the
them
person
jumped
to
on
ask.
board.
And it's
That,
like,
hey,
it's
let's have
very-
like multiplayer aspects.
It's very clear that, like, multiplayer stuff, like, is like,
Girl, I
back.
can't drive.
And it was a thing in like the early 2000s, then it just randomly just died in like the PS3, not even PS3 era,
No one
like
had
PS4
friends.
era.
Everyone was alone.
And then it like came back like mid PS4 era, and now we're kind of like to the point where people are like, you know what? Single player games aren't the fucking wave. Like they're good, but like they aren't.
That's the thing is, a good single player game is great,
Don't
and not
make as
every
much
game
money.
needs to have co-op aspects, but some games just improve vastly when you just go, yeah, sure, play with your friends. Like, I didn't think that I would ever be like, I want to play farming games with my friends, but then, like, Stardew Valley was like, hey, do you want to play this game with your friends? And I was like, God, yeah, you want me to ignore all of your villagers and just, like, vibe with my friends and just make money and enjoy a gameplay loop that
Play
is
with your
incredibly
friends.
pleasing?
You
Yes!
have a ring that'll allow you to marry your friends with no actual like benefits in game. Just it'll say you're married now. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
you're not gonna make that.
Like, God, it wasn't even, I don't think it was even Stardew Valley that did it first. I think it was the
your
weird
friends?
3D one.
Farm with your friends.
Yeah, farm with your friends. And it's like, it's just a pleasing gameplay loop. And so, like, taking that idea of, hey, what if you just had a pleasing
That one
gameplay loop
feels
that you
like,
can enjoy with friends and
That one
personalize
feels
the
like
thing.
Farmville without the Facebook, which is what I wanted.
Oh, God, yeah. But no, it just adds like a pleasing aspect, and that's the thing is like you have to decide. I guess as a developer of your video game is, hey, is this better as a single player experience that you just enjoy and relax in, or would this game benefit at all in any way from just letting people have their friends in their
I
world
mean, I have
and
a
run
pretty
around?
spicy take, and that is like, open worlds are never really like that great single player.
Oh God,
They will
yeah.
always improve multiplayer because you will always find a way to have fun with your friend in a big open sandbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I do think like Cord it's Cord or Mew. One of you motherfuckers had a point earlier when you said Arceus like as an MMO or a co-op game would be super fun because you could just throw Pokeballs at each other, lead enraged Pokemon at each other. People would have so much fun just creating more shenanigans to do in an already very shenanigan-filled game, I would say.
I mean, Arceus multiplayer does exist. It's called Monster Hunter.
Yeah, and I love it. Monster Hunter, like, alone, I just don't really want to play. Like, I'll play it and I'll be like, ooh, pretty, ooh, I'm on top of a monster. But the moment you have friends dicking around with you in Monster Hunter, it just becomes 10 times more fun. And I think that is what caused, like I feel like we went to co-op games first, and then from co-op games we went back to MMOs.
Oh, we didn't, though. We kind of went, like, co-op games and couch co-op was the wave, and, like, all this shit with, like, Dead Space ended up with a fucking co-op thing.
Okay, but that was bad.
And, yeah, but that's besides the point. And then, like I said, when the PS4 came out, it was like single-player experiences, Last of Us, and Uncharted, and fucking the Killzone, and, like...
Worry.
Yeah, there's just a lot of, like, this is just a single-player thing. Like, we just do a single-player game, and there's no multiplayer aspect in, like, a lot of games. And then, like I said, like, right around, like, 2015, 16-ish, like, people started realizing, like, oh, MMOs are cool again. Now we've slowly been getting back to, like, yeah, no, multiplayer is allowed to be in video games. People want to play with their friends. Gamers have friends.
I just want to chill out with my friends while we go fishing in the countryside.
Yeah, it's been nice to see indie games implement it. Well,
I love all those weird single-player games that had a multiplayer for no reason. Like, the game had nothing that would suggest a multiplayer, but it had a multiplayer anyways. Like, that was the coolest shit ever.
Like Fear.
Oh yeah, Fear had one. Ratchet and Clank, the third game, had one. There's obviously the Wii version of The Force Unleashed had one.
As someone who's played the Ratchet and Clank, the third multiplayer, it is unplayable unless you actually have 4 players.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
I never got to play with anyone.
Yeah, it's unplayable, like literally unplayable, because you will just be at a standstill, because it's like a tower defense kind of deal, and so you have to like go and get like a core and then bring it back to your tower. But if you're only 2 people, you're pretty much just like in a Mexican shoot-down at all times, and it's not worth it. Nobody's ever winning.
Whenever I
PlayStation
think of,
2 online shit was the most confusing thing ever, and I don't know how many people actually used it outside of probably like Japan or something.
Iconic. What's the zombie game that you and Shiny played together?
Oh, Dead Rising?
Like, just that has both single player and co-op, and the co-op is just there to be like, hey, do you just want to have fun?
Dead Rising, yeah.
Yeah. That's like a perfect example of, hey, you can have a single player game that just has co-op as an option.
I mean, it's the exact thing I said, right? A single player game in like an open world, it's like, it's gonna be good, but it's never gonna be as good as one that has like any multiplayer aspect. It's just, open worlds are just more fun when you are more than one person. Because
Dead Rising 2 kicked ass because you could run the open sandbox of the mall with a friend. So it was weird because in Dead Rising 2 you were both the same character, but then in Dead Rising Off the Records they updated it to one character. Dead Rising 2 Off the Record and Dead Rising 3 was like, oh no, they're a completely separate character and they have weird like dialogue with each other that you only get in multiplayer, which is super fun and dumb.
God, I'm happy the
Yeah,
developers
then you get to
are
fly
figuring
across
it
the
out.
map when you hit a railing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just so happy the developers are going, hey, yeah, what if we, like, made this game and it's single player, but what if you also just had the ability to co-op? But also I'm just happy to see them going away from the idea of sandbox single player games, because for a while, it felt like every single time I was watching an E3 or a game announcement, it was like, it's an open world game, and you were just kind of alone in this massive world, and it's like, you have tons of stuff to do, tons of side quests, like, it's not that there's not things to do, although some of them didn't have anything to do at all, but it was just kind of like, eventually you'd almost get bored, because it's like, okay, get on your horse and run to point A to point B, like, watching my dad play Red Dead Redemption, I just kept on thinking, like, man, just imagine if you had, like, friends. You could do this with people, instead of just running on a horse alone for 8 hours.
I wouldn't want to do that with other people, because I wouldn't want to subjugate people to Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay, fair, but I was talking about the first
Red Dead Online for the first game, and the first
Red Dead Online is like decent, yeah.
It was really fun just going around on your horses. It's like you guys were actually a gang. It was hilarious.
It's like,
I remember
it's
fighting
good.
over a specific board.
I'd definitely say that there's definitely one thing I'd like to talk about because there's a very interesting thing that happened recently that does directly involve like MMOs, and that is there's like no way in hell World of Warcraft isn't going to get like upscaled or basically just make the Diablo MMO instead, because Microsoft
Yeah.
now owns Activision.
Yeah, which means they own Diablo.
Yeah.
I know people have wanted Diablo co-op multiplayer
It-
MMO type thing, even though I don't know very little about Diablo. But I also know that like there's no way that Microsoft would leave WoW the way it is, right? Because either WoW is dying, especially with most of its people gone, or it's getting like a hey, it's becoming a free to play. We're upscaling it so it doesn't look like garbage because it can't survive. It has too much competition now. It has PSO2, which is a beautiful looking.
It doesn't need competition. That's too much controversy.
Okay, well that too. It has controversy and competition. That's a 2 for 2. It's dead. It's down. It's on the ground. It's half buried.
It's gasping for air.
Yeah. No, like that because I mean we saw that again with PSO, like New Genesis, like much as New Genesis definitely is like lacking compared to PSO2. I mean PSO2 is literally a game that existed for 8 years.
Yeah,
and,
it has 8 years of content.
Yeah, it's
and development.
whereas
its
New
baby.
Genesis is now in its first-ish year, I think, maybe 2. I don't know.
No, it's its
time.
first year.
Time's a vacuum. But like that's such a cool fucking idea that I would like to see like applied to other MMOs. Like I said, if Cartoon Network were a better were a better company owned by a better parent company, I'd love to see Fusion Fall 2.
Oh god,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Even with the
Fusion
new
Fall
stuff, I'd
2.
accept the new
Yeah.
shows. Just like make them cool.
I feel like they could.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like especially Gumball. Gumball could be cool.
Especially if
Dude,
they go with the whole like
that would
age
be
them up to
insane.
15 or 16 or something, like make them a bit older and give them like an interesting, because they already have kind of like an interesting lore of their own. Weave that into a Fusion Fall thing. It would be pretty fucking
Teen
fun.
Titans Go fight the Teen Titans. It'll be
Oh,
funny.
hell yeah.
They've already done that in the
that
show,
would actually
so like
make for a
that's
smart
canon.
promotion, though.
Yeah, no, like I mean, what MMOs would you guys like to see come back like that? Like just a random upscaling, like it's a whole new it's a whole new thing for a whole new generation.
Give
kind
me
of deal.
Toontown 2 Electric Boogaloo,
You're crazy.
please.
Absolutely crazy.
You're a mad lad, and I respect it. I mean,
Like,
if,
Toontown was one of those MMOs that I genuinely actually had interest in back in the day, and I wish I got into it, but I never did on the account of me owning super shitty computers.
Yep.
And plus, I think it was like a paid thing too, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. That's why I never got into it either.
Yeah. But now we have Toontown Rewritten, which is a fan thing, which it's fun. I only played it like the one time when I downloaded it for a funny stream thing with my friend.
Yeah.
But I'd probably jump into that if I actually had the time and commitment to it.
If it
I just want something like that again, because that
I mean,
was
for
fun.
me, I just want Dragon Quest 13. I want Dragon Quest 10, but one I can play. that is my whole that is my heartfelt wish, because I've looked at that game for years, just having to watch it for years. Like I've been looking at that game for like a decade, just knowing that I can never have it because I do not understand katakana and kanji, and translations are not great, and it's such a nightmare to like unregion lock it, and it's just. And it's also paid. There's just so many layers of things that make that game so unapproachable. But God, I love Toriyama's art style. I love the way that game looks. I love that I can be just any random Dragon Quest race from like the first 9 games. I want it, but it's not happening. And I don't think it's happening ever, because Final Fantasy XIV is their flagship MMO, and Square Enix is not a good company. This has been my TED Talk.
I mean, if Adventure Quest Worlds wasn't already like out there, becoming 3D on Steam, doing its thing, I would have said that. But like, I mean, I remember when we found out that they were alive and thriving, I was like, oh my god, this was secretly a wish that I didn't even know I had. So aside from that, I'm like, I don't have any like childhood MMOs that I'd love to see come back. All I can say is I just want to see more interesting MMOs from like game developers and publishers that I know have it in them. I mean, if WoW gets fixed and is made free, maybe I'll actually check it out and not be like, ew, no. Take your pandas and be gone.
WoW was free. I'd try it.
But also, yeah, no, maybe actually give me a Pokemon MMO. That'd be interesting. And obviously, if they made a Dragon Quest MMO, a Dragon Ball MMO that was good, I'd poke it. But like, I'm not touching Xenoverse with a 9-foot pole after what I've learned. Also, I'm not touching it because I've seen the DLC, and honey, no.
I of course just want them to old Yeller Xenoverse 2 because it is broken and they need to fix it. I don't care for all the money and that I and the hundreds of other people have wasted on Xenoverse 2. It's broken at the seams. They need to move on. They need to kill it and make Xenoverse 3 already. They just got to do it. You can't just keep adding shit to this broken
I'm
house.
telling you, the reason why Xenoverse 3 is taking so long is because it is going to be Ball Online too.
Xenoverse 2 is basically a corpse that they refuse to let go.
And
I'm
that
tired
would,
of
it would
paying
make
for
a lot of
video
sense,
games,
like
man.
on a like planning way, because it's like, yeah, no, just release more DLC until we can actually get this
Nobody
MMO
likes
rolling.
games as a service.
I want to believe that thoroughly, Shiny, but it's just like with just how lazy their DLCs have been and how little thought they genuinely have put into it. Like just no hints at a Xenoverse 3 outside of one of the older expansions saying, "Oh yeah, well we're done with Xenoverse 2," and then they continue to release more stuff with it. It's like, well, that was a fucking lie,
They're
clearly.
using you guys to fund the third one, probably, which I don't like
We
it when game
well
companies
funded
do
we
that,
well
but they do
funded
do it.
Yep.
We have well funded a third one. We funded a fourth one at this point with how much DLC.
I'd
With how
laugh
much
so hard if they just skip Xenoverse 3 and immediately go to 4. And everyone's like, what happens at 3? And they're like, we don't talk about it.
What if they just call it Xenoverse World?
Something.
Lord. Like I said, I just want it to be dead because it's like I say, it really does feel like they're dragging a corpse. Like nothing they do makes any sense. Like, oh, people like we updated this version of Goku because he didn't have a move he needed a move people wanted. But let me sell you a fourth Gogeta so he can have a move that he didn't have previously. It's like, well, you updated that Goku. Why can't you just update Gogeta? Why do you have to sell us a fourth one of him? Like, is that really fucking necessary? What's
Yes.
wrong with you guys? And like, there's nothing more they can hype up until the new movie. Like, the anime's dragging ass, and they're not going to take shit from the manga. They know the fucking the player base is fucking illiterate. They don't read the manga. They only read the anime. They only watch the anime, meaning they won't have any like. They are literally grasping at straws. They sold us a fourth Gogeta. They're gonna sell us like the 10th Goku in this game. It's just ridiculous. It's like, this isn't how you do an MMO live. This isn't how you do a fucking fighting game. It fails on both fronts. It fails as a fighting game. It fails as a Dragon Ball Z game. It fails as an MMO. So why won't you just fucking kill it and let it be something else?
Well, maybe they're trying to make like if they are making a Xenoverse 3 or a Xenoverse World or whatever the fuck we're calling this theoretical game. If they're making it, it's entirely possible that they are trying to make something that can compete with other MMOs. And again, other MMOs, they currently look really good. They look really good. Most of them have, well, they've usually like picked one type of gameplay and stuck to it. Some of them have gone with something more action-based. Some of them are still kind of going with the press this button, use your skill, then that skill's on a cooldown. Some of them have combined the two. So if they're trying to make something good enough that like looks good, is competitive in a way, has a decent story that like people can maybe do with their friends, that actually costs a fair bit of money and takes a fair bit of time. So again, they might be doing the sadly shitty thing that developers have started doing where it's, we need you to help fund our project and pay our bills because we don't actually want to foot the bill for this. So until the next thing is ready, we're just going to keep on half baking stuff and throwing it at you, hoping you'll buy it to support things. And it's half baked because we can't put too much effort into it because we're putting effort into the new thing.
And that would be fine if they're transparent about it. If that's what the idea was, that'd be fine. I'm literally like Poe Dameron in The Last Jedi. It's like, you don't need to tell me that you're doing it. You just need to tell me that there's a plan, that there's hope.
Give me something to work with. Come on, man.
And I will say, speaking of like MMO mechanics and stuff like that, like that's another thing that kind of happened after like MMOs sort of petered out for a minute there. a lot of games started stealing MMO mechanics. How many goddamn games do you see nowadays with cooldowns?
Oh god, yeah.
There are
Like,
things with cooldown, much more RPG-esque mechanics of
Yeah.
leveling up and skill trees.
like and speaking of a game that is an MMO, mechanically and visually and everything, goddamn Xenoblade. That is a single player MMO
Xenoblade.
like no other game. It is fascinating how that game came to be.
I
Mhm.
know.
Which is why
it's-
no copies were ever made of that game, and it barely sold anything because Nintendo didn't believe it could ever sell.
That's the thing.
And now it is a household Nintendo name, and we're getting our third entry, and that game also follows the formula of, well, big open worlds are cool and all, but like if you can do it with your friends, that'd be so dope. Because Xenoblade Chronicles X is that, and it was really
I was
good.
about
We
to
s-
bring up Xenoblade Chronicles X and how badly Colin would love for that to get a sequel.
Guys, we have to play
Or my brother.
Xenoblade X before they shut down the servers next year.
Oh
What?
yeah, I'll do that. I
What
have
the
my copy
heck is
somewhere.
Xenoblade X?
Xenoblade Chronicles X is a alternate universe, potentially. Who knows? Xenoblade. It could all be connected. Xenoblade game in only more or less name and certain enemy types, and obviously made by Monolith Soft. So it's just a big open world area that isn't two giant robots.
Okay, but why does it have servers? Is it like an online?
It's an online game.
Because I was about to say I would love to see
It's an online
a
Xenoblade.
proper Xenoblade like MMO
It existed.
on like the Titan type deal with like give me running around on giant robots or giant creatures. That sounds fun.
That
'Cause
would be neat.
Xenoblade's world is pretty as sin.
Monolith Soft knows how to make them. They just do.
They really do, and so I'm like, God, like you could have it easy. Like you could be a Homs, you could be a human, you could be a goddamn blade, you could be a cat girl, you could be a fucking Hyantia.
Bird person.
Yeah, and just like let
Turn me into
people
a bird
be a
person.
Nopon, and just like let people go nuts and have fun. Like
I
would
think
play.
I think that game is in the future for sure.
Oh,
I definitely
probably,
think, like,
because-
they're looking at that for sure.
It's one of those situations where because MMOs have gotten so popular and because so many like game franchises are really popular, are doing very well, you know the demand is out there, and so you know that those developers are likely thinking about and going, yeah, but could we? Because obviously they have to consider the cost of servers and upkeep
Also,
and
I
all
mean,
that stuff, but they
in
could.
the vein of like Xenoverse, like there are a lot of MMO lights effectively. Like a lot of mobile games do that. Genshin Impact nowadays like does that. Well, they just have those little multiplayer aspects with like the drop rates and just the little things for the dopamine rush, but also you can do it with your friends kind of deal. And that's been a very interesting genre of games to like look at in the last like it's been about a decade. It's just super interesting to see how many MMO mechanics, how many old school like 2002 MMO mechanics have sustained to this day, and sometimes make games worse, sometimes makes games better. It's been really fucking interesting, despite MMOs not
Depends on how
necessarily
you go
doing
about
super
it.
great.
This is why my brain wants to categorize Genshin as an MMO.
A lot of
It
people
gets-
have actually.
I'm with you.
I mean, it strides on that line between being like this.
It's
This is a game that I
it's
can
a
definitely
gacha
play.
game, but
I mean, yeah.
it feels when you're not gashaing, which is most of the time,
Yep.
if you're not a whale, it feels like an MMO.
I'm hoarding resources and collecting shit all the time and trying to complete as many quests
Yep.
as possible.
Craft.
I mean, that's basically what that is. But it strides on that line between being like, yeah, I can play this game just fine on my own, but also playing with friends is kick ass.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those things too where seeing these games, a lot of them because they're straddling that weird like we're an MMO but we're not because we're more of a co-op thing that you only do sometimes because most of the time you're in single player. You just kind of start to go, why don't you just add more co-op things and more MMO things? And then with other games, you're doing the opposite where you're like, oh, well, you actually aren't succeeding so much at the co-op part, so maybe like reduce that a little. And it's been really weird to see that happen because it's like it's not really on the game devs, it's not really on anyone, it's just you never know how your community's going to develop and you never know what's going to happen and you never know what's going to be most pleasing to play. So you have things like Genshin where you're like, this would almost be more fun if there was more co-op things to do. And then you have other games, none that come to mind right now because I don't play a lot of those kinds of games because they weird me out a little with the in-between. half-baked, the I don't know if I want to be a pie or a cake, where it's like sometimes I'm like, nah, I could do with less co-op things, actually. I'm fine just on my own.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm of the other mind. Like co-op stuff, like it really depends, right? It depends on like your budget. Because if you don't have the budget, obviously don't. Like if you're gonna do a single player thing, don't even bother with a co-op thing. That's stupid. Resident Evil has been criminal for doing this.
You can always add co-op later. That is an opinion
Yeah.
I truly believe. You don't have to start with it.
But it's like when a game has the budget, why not?
Yeah.
Just put in a bit of resources and like why not just add a co-op something like or other. I mean, like you
Yeah.
could mention like stuff like, and I don't want to. I don't want to for the very specific reasons that Ubisoft is a bad company and it's full of abusers and it's just an awful fucking place to work and don't support their video games. But let's just mention their video games for 2 seconds. Far Cry. The Far Cry series had like specific multiplayer modes that they did.
Oh yeah, no.
Ever since Far Cry 2 had like proper open world co-op, which was kind of interesting. But like Far Cry 3 had like a multiplayer mode, and then Far Cry 4 and onward eventually would get like the proper multiplayer. But it's just those little like modes, extra little co-op things in games were like a thing back when Far Cry 3 came out, and it was very interesting to see this half-baked thing like Marie says.
Fable 3 also had like a co-op mode that I played a lot. Because it was just surprisingly fun. Of course, you'd get like angry occasionally when people would come into your world and start doing evil things, and you were like, "Excuse me, I'm on a good only run." But it was just something enjoyable, and it was nice that they just added that in there, even if it like it wasn't necessary. You were playing a 100% single player game because your friends were not in the plot at all. There was nothing there for them. But they could just pop in and help you out and murder things with you, and that was incredibly enjoyable.
Yeah. There's like, if you really think about it, there's a lot of like old games like during like the PS2 and Xbox era that just had co-op for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
I guess like Ratchet Deadlock.
Yeah.
That game. Oh my
did-
god. When I found out that game had co-op, me and my friends were just fucking going at it. That game was so much fun to play the entire game in co-op. It was so cool.
Yeah.
And then there's also like other games too that I can't think on the top of my head at the moment, even though I can look to my side and look at all my PS2 games and maybe glean something out of it.
I mean, a whole lot of EA games back when they made games.
Time Crisis 3.
Yes.
Good stuff.
That's a thing. I can't see anything from
Don't
here.
worry too much about it.
Never
All the
mind.
Dynasty
Continue with
Warriors
the
games,
topic.
like there's lots of couch co-op like stuff back in the 2000s. It was just a thing. It was the wave.
Halo had fucking co-op.
That's true. All the shooters.
I remember my brother made me
that's
play
right.
Halo co-op.
Okay, I never played Halo, but all the games have like co-op integrated in their story, right?
Not really that you can play the story co-op, but it's not like integrated necessarily. Depending on the game.
Well, I mean, you could just play the entire game in co-op. Is
Yes.
what I'm
Yes,
I'm
you can.
asking. Yeah, man, they really did a lot of that shit. And then we got PS4 and Xbox One. It's story time, bitches. You're playing by yourselves.
I absolutely hated that generation for that reason. That's why, like, my PS4, I don't own it anymore. I don't own that. I don't want to be associated with that stuff. I have my my Steelbook Neo Automata. I have that shit, but I do not have my PS4.
It's a steelbook. It's basically just an art thingy. It's an art installation.
I don't mind all the single player stuff because that's usually what I play anyway. But I absolutely understand that shit can get annoying if that's not your sort of thing.
I mean, I
And
love
plus, the
single-player
PS4
games.
was
I play a
riddled
lot
with
of them, but
cinematic
it's-
shit anyway, so.
When everything is just cinematic, like B-movie guff, like I zone out. I'm done. Like I like The Last of Us. I've never cared for Uncharted. I've never cared for like a lot of the stuff that like came. I mean, fucking what's the name of the goddamn the Ninja Theory game with the Blade Lady, the not God of War.
Hellblade.
Yeah, no, not Hellblade. Before that one.
We didn't we watch a movie on that?
Yeah, we did watch a bad movie on that.
Heaven Sword?
That might be what it's called. Yes.
It sounds dramatic and stupid enough to be correct.
That was part of like that generation of like right at the end of the PS3, right when the PS4 is like
Heavenly
happening.
Sword.
It's just I mean, God of War is also criminal
Heaven's
for
Sword
like
was a PS3 game.
being part of like the single player wave, especially the new one. The new one is very much part of that. Like, this is basically an Uncharted, but it's still God of War kind of, but it's over the over the shoulder camera. Thoughts?
Not all
Heaven
games benefit
Sword.
from it, and that's kind of my thoughts on that. Is like, also
Heaven Sword, that's
this is
what it
gonna
was.
this is gonna maybe like not be what you're looking for an answer for that, but like, too many games are trying to be movies. And that's my issue with single player games is I like single player games. Occasionally, I just want to be like, I don't want to talk with friends. I'm having a me day. I want to just play something alone and relax and enjoy its story or its plot or its gameplay loop or whatever. But lately there's been this big push towards everything has to be cinematic and detailed and beautiful, and so you spend like way too long just sitting there watching cutscenes and basically going from place to place to watch animated things and characters move around, and it's like, god damn. And I feel like over the shoulder games fall into that category of you're basically playing a movie, and I'm like, I don't want to play a movie. I want to play a game. I came here for an experience, for a gameplay loop, for something that I can feel and do. So now I have like a really conflicted feeling about over the shoulder cams, because when I see them, I'm like, is this a video game or is this a movie that you're trying to pass off as an interactive experience? Anyway, to you, Iconic, because I've been like, interrupting you this whole time.
From what?
Did you have something to say about over-the-shoulder cams?
Did I?
Video games?
I don't think. I don't remember you interrupting me about that.
I have to make sure. I don't know.
But I do feel you. Like I said, there's a lot of things that really just want to be a movie, and that's weird. It's so weird. Like, like they recently just made the Uncharted movie, and it's like, well, that seems unnecessary because it's like, well, Uncharted clearly wants to be a movie anyways, but it's like most of the experience is as a video game. Like,
And if
it's
I
an
had to be
inter.
cynical, that might have
Huh?
been the goal. The
Uncharted
goal might
feels like
have
it.
been to make like video games that are so close to movies that eventually become movie productions, because movies still make more money than video games.
They do.
Yeah. But the thing is, like I said, when it comes to adaptation, there's always the issue of like turning a video game into a movie is always going to be extremely difficult because most movies are meant to be consumed within an hour to 2 hours. A video game is meant to last a lot more than that, so there's a lot of padding or technical padding to make the game last longer, or there's gameplay loops, and without those things, that's no longer the video game. Like, so it loses what it is. Like a lot of people don't understand that when it comes to certain video game adaptations. A lot of people did not like the new Mortal Kombat,
This section will contain spoilers for the Mortal Kombat 2020 movie.
even though I felt it did exactly what arguably like the new Mortal Kombat did absolutely the best it could with the situation given, because like adapting a fighting game story is arguably the hardest kind of video game movie to make, because it's like a fighting game. While there is an overarching story, technically the story is only limited to who you play as through the arcade mode. So all this lore and stuff is like only limited to the story mode, and not every fighting game had a story mode until NetherRealm started popularizing that for the most part.
Yeah.
And even with the
Actually,
story mode, like they don't really give away that story in in a sense that feels like you could consume it within an hour to an hour and a half. So it's like the Mortal Kombat movie had to speed through a lot of the lore, but like it did it in a comfortable manner. It gave certain characters more importance because, well, those are the characters people like. Like people like certain characters from Mortal Kombat, but those characters aren't actually the main characters. They're not what the main focus is on. So it's like, oh, well, why do we need this other guy? Well, it's like, well, we need somebody so we can explain lore to. And also, he makes Scorpion more important because Scorpion isn't important. People like Scorpion. He's technically the poster, he's the face of Mortal Kombat, but he's not the main character. And they did something to make him more of a main character, make him more important to the story. So it's like when adapting a video game, it's always going to be difficult. Even something that is already basically a movie like Uncharted, there's still like the constant gameplay loop of like Drake shooting some people and then getting into a situation like a very adventure situation. It's like, well, the fun of Uncharted, at least theoretically, is doing all that because it's interactive. Turning it into a movie just seems kind of weird because it's like, well, then you lose that interactive part of it. It's like the fun of Uncharted is as if you're playing a movie. Like
Yeah.
it definitely wants to be cinematic, but it's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if like you were in this movie doing all this weird shit? So then you turn it into a movie. It's like, well, you kind of lost that part. You just get to see Tom Holland get his ass kicked for fucking an hour. That's
Yeah.
just weird.
Yeah, that's and actually kind of circling back to MMOs, there was like a World of Warcraft movie, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
and
Yeah.
that one was for the most part like received neutrally because that one like World of Warcraft clearly has a lot of lore, and I don't think they specifically adapted any one story. I think they put in a lot of lore from different arcs of World of Warcraft, which is why it kind of seemed like a mess for a lot
Well,
of
World of
people.
Warcraft's early like arcs is just the arc through Warcraft 1 through 3.
Yeah.
So like I think that's basically what the movie did.
Yeah, but I also heard that it planted the seeds for other story arcs. It's like, well, you need to just focus on one arc at the moment. You guys don't know if this is successful. People really want their own cinematic universe thanks to Marvel. So it's like, well, that's not a good idea because video game movie is not a guaranteed success anymore. The reason Sonic is doing so fucking well because it knows that the simpler stories of Sonic is the best thing to adapt at this very moment. Just simple, cut and clean. Just here's Sonic. There's
And Sonic's
Eggman.
easier to sell, right, as opposed to World of Warcraft, because like Sonic's just a personality, so all you have to do is sell that.
Exactly. Exactly. There is lore for Sonic. There is constant different story arcs, different villains, but it's like if we are to make a successful Sonic movie, we need to keep it simple. And then you compare that to Detective Pikachu. They couldn't make a normal Pokemon movie because the normal gameplay loop of Pokemon is so personalized and interactive. It's about you going on this journey to be a Pokemon master, to get all the Pokemon. It's like, well, you
Get
can't
out of the
exactly.
house so your mom can have the spare bedroom because she keeps on moving into bedroom, like one bedroom houses, and then being like, fuck, get out of my house, 10-year-old. I mean, go on an adventure, 10-year-old.
And that's why Pokemon was so difficult to adapt because you can't just make Pokemon into a movie because you lose that interactiveness. And what makes Pokemon is you. It's you going on this journey. So it's like, oh, well, there's Detective Pikachu. Like that's the only story, technically properly story driven Pokemon story. But it's like, but then that bring that, but that like it's so weird because then Detective Pikachu brings in the ethicalness of the actual Pokemon story. It's like, oh, is it right to enslave Pokemon for your own gain? It's like, well, then that seems like you're kind of going against your own fucking brand, right? And that's really weird.
I don't know, it
I,
feels
I
on
have so much
point.
to
Humans
say
are good
about that
that.
movie, but if I do, we're gonna be here all day.
Well, we can have a full episode of video game adaptations, in which are
Video
truly the
game
best.
movies? Yeah, I'd be
Yeah,
down
no,
to do that.
we
Absolutely.
can have a full thing about
Okay.
that. I'm sure we all have a lot to
Talk
say.
about the old Mortal Kombat
First of
movie and
all,
how it's the
like,
greatest
Listen,
movie ever
my
made.
all
We
right.
can
Listen,
wait until actually, when does this Sonic movie sequel come out
April.
again?
April 7th and 9th.
Yeah, that'll be a good time for that.
Sure. We
Yeah.
can all try to watch that on our own time or together at some point, and then we can all come and compare and contrast all the video game movies of old and the future, which is Sonic at the moment. Like, yeah, Uncharted, but I don't think Uncharted is going to be that successful. I don't think they're going to get a sequel, even though they probably want a sequel.
wasn't there a really bad, because like talking about this made me think, I'm trying to remember because, okay, one, there was a World of Warcraft movie from 2016 apparently, okay.
Yeah.
But then that also
Mhm.
made me think, wait, wasn't there an Assassin's Creed movie?
Yes.
And I remember I tried to, like, my brother got really excited when we watched it. It was, one, gray, brown, green piss filter trash. But two, God, those games are games for a reason. They can't stand up as movies. They just can't. It falters and fails in almost every single way. And yeah, no, it's like the fact that games are kind of moving into this, like, we want to be more cinematic, we want to be more like movies. No. That's not your strong suit. It'll never be your strong suit. Turn back now while you have the chance.
So many things defeat the purpose, like the infamous Last of Us 2, which is supposed to be a giant critique of the cycle of violence. It's like, oh, you're supposed to feel bad for killing people. Then why is the gameplay loop supposed to be fun? Like, why is it Like, there's so many videos of people doing
Why
sick
gameplay
combos.
loop so fun then?
It's so funny because you'll see people playing The Last of Us 2 doing like no scopes and combos and doing all these things. It's like they clearly do not feel bad about killing people because you made it fun. You want us to not enjoy the gameplay loop, but then you make it fun. It's like that's completely defeating the purpose. If this were a movie, it'd be different, but you're a video game.
Less gameplay while the NPCs call out the names of dogs you're killing to make you feel bad is very hilarious.
It's funny because
Bad job.
it's funny because like there's a section in Metal Gear Solid Rising Revengeance where like Raiden starts to feel bad for killing people, and then it's just by the end of it, he's like, actually, it's okay that I kill people because I'm kind of not all there anyway. And then he actually becomes stronger because he gets over that he feels bad for killing people. And it's like that's a completely different wavelength than The Last of Us 2 trying to make you feel bad. Like, oh, look, that person had a life, they had a name, they had a dog, you're a monster. But then the player doesn't give a shit because they're doing sick combos and no scopes.
Honestly, this is like bringing a really interesting point to mind where it's like, I don't play games to be guilt tripped, so that is definitely a failure of that game, is that they're trying to make you not enjoy the game. They're actively trying to discourage you from playing by being like, you should feel bad. And it's like, okay, for someone like me who's very empathetic, I would not, like, I can't enjoy that. I cannot. But also, it's kind of a failure on your story and your gameplay for, yeah, having this controversy of, you're a monster, you killed this person's beloved doggo that they were using to survive the apocalypse. How dare you? But it's like, but we're gonna reward you because you murdered things. And it's like, okay. And it makes me think of like Bioshock of all things.
Let's look at it this way. Mechanically, if you wanted to do that, you make like ammo and bullets and stuff like that scarce, and you make it a choice to like deal with something.
Yeah.
That's how you would do that.
Resident
Yeah.
Evil it.
That's a very good
yeah,
point
very
because that is actually a mechanic in Alien Isolation. You don't have to kill the enemy humans. You can completely avoid them. You can kill them for spare ammo and such. You can even lead the alien to go kill them. In Alien Isolation, you have multiple options on how to deal with human enemies, and that's super interesting. And it's not meant to make you feel bad. It's like, oh, what are you willing to do to survive against the fucking xenomorph? Like, are you going to sacrifice these people so you can run away? Are you going to kill them so you have ammo to fight the fucking xenomorph? It's like that's 10 times more interesting and 10 times more like thematically like mentally challenging on the player than it is for The Last of Us to make you feel like a fucking child. Like, oh man, you should feel bad. You're bad.
Mhm.
You know why I brought up Bioshock, for instance, is Bioshock has that thing where the entire game you're being manipulated,
Yeah.
because of like the big twist. Spoilers ahead for a very old game at this point. Is you get to the end of the game and you find out, hey, you know all those like missions you've been doing this entire time for this disembodied voice? Yeah, that's brainwashing. You are a brainwashed puppet that he's been using to do his dirty work so that he can succeed in his nefarious evil schemes and whatnot. And it brings this interesting like moment to the player where like, oh, I was just having like a good grand time murdering people and doing things and having fun with the gameplay loop. You don't really feel guilty. You feel betrayed and angry, and you're like, man, this guy was using me, and I enjoyed it because, and that's like, it goes well with like how video games are, with the entire system of missions, with everything about it, and it also gives you a reason to, at the end of the game, be like, now I want to confront this guy because he's been manipulating me the entire game, and even though I enjoyed it, and even though that's literally how this game is designed, and you can't progress without doing it, it makes you go, damn. It gives you like a satisfying emotional everything while also playing with that. And that is sadly something where The Last of Us fails, where it doesn't use the fact that you're playing a video game where you need to progress to say anything, unlike, as you said, Alien Isolation, where you might have to, big brain it and be like, what kind of strategy do I want to bring to the table to survive? Instead, in The Last of Us, it's you should feel bad, and it's not like a survival. It's not anything. It's you're just kind of an asshole, aren't you? And it's like, well, I guess I am, but that's the game you made.
Yeah, and that's a very good point what you brought up with Bioshock, because the reason that twist works, Like, I do feel people gas up the twist a bit much nowadays. Like, it's still a smart twist, but it's mainly because, like I said, it's all the more poignant because they just announced that they're gonna try again to do the Bioshock movie. Like, they've talked about that for so many years, and they haven't properly done it, but they're saying, "Well, we're doing it again this time for sure." And the twist works specifically because it is a video game, because it's like you're used to the normal gameplay loop of somebody gives you a mission and you go do it. You don't really question it. It's like, oh well, I assume the guy is making me do this for a good reason. And like the whole time it's like in universe, you're this faceless dude with no backstory and he doesn't know, like he has a backstory, but we don't know that that's actually fabricated, that his whole life is fabricated. He's literally just this slave to this person. And that's really fucked up to think about. It's like that's fucked up for the character and also fucked up for us because we're just doing the normal gameplay loop. We're like, oh yeah, this is a necessary thing. We have to do this. This is our objective. And then the whole time, the player and the character feel betrayed because it's like, well, we're just following the normal gameplay loop, and then to have it turned on its head that, oh yeah, the whole time actually you're not doing it because it's a video game. You're doing it because in universe the character's actually been manipulating this whole time. And that's really smart. And that solely works in the context of a video game because it works on a meta level, but also in an in universe level. Both the player and the character we're playing as are betrayed. And that's really smart and really cool. And I don't think that will actually properly translate over into a movie because that, like I said, it loses the interactivity. We're just going to see a guy, obviously I don't remember the guy's name for Bioshock One, but he's supposed to be like a silent guy. He's like he doesn't say much, but it's just like the idea that it's like he had a life before all the things that transpired in Bioshock's events happened, and then you're told, oh wait, no, all that is fake. You never really lived. You're not a real person. It's like, oh, that's fucked up for the character, and then it's fucked up on another level for us because we were manipulated without even realizing it. And it's like I don't know how that would be able to translate into a movie or a TV show or whatever their plans are. And it's like that sounds like a cinematic twist, and because it works on a metatextual level and a in-game level, but it's like would that work just on the viewer watching it? It's like I'm not sure that will, right?
I mean, to me, it's a simple matter. I don't want to see another Bioshock thing for the rest of my life because the studio's dead.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, fair. It's kind of like how I never want to see another Dead Space thing because they killed it, shot it, buried it, revived it, shot it again, and it's like, just leave it alone, man. Just leave it alone. Unless you're going to give it back to the original team that knew what they were doing and developed a terrifying, genuinely freaky, suspenseful world that you decided, what if, like, that is the perfect example of sometimes co-op is a no. There was no need to add, like, co-op and loot crates and boxes to a Dead Space game. And they did. And it removed the suspense, it removed the thrill. Like, maybe you could have had a co-op mode that unlocks after you beat, like, the single-player story. Maybe. Something like that would have been fine with me, but the fact that it was like, no, we want you to co-op, and we want you to loot crate, and we want you to, like, have these type of mechanics, it's like, okay, you remove all the suspense, you remove all the thrill, you remove the survival and the strategy and the everything, because now it doesn't matter if my character takes a risk to get, like, a piece of equipment to upgrade their weapon. I'll just loot crate box magic and, ooh, look, flamethrower.
Yeah, it's really disappointing because I do feel there's potential in co-op for horror games. Like usually the consensus is, well, if you're playing with a friend, it can't be scary anymore because it's like, oh, you guys will dick around and joke. There'll be that, like I said, you'll be you won't be immersed in the game anymore because you know you're talking to your real life friend. You know shit's not happening to them, you know? But it's like Dead Space 3 did have really cool ideas that was mucked up by the fact they wanted it to be more video gamey and less immersive as a horror story. Because there's the idea that one character will see a hallucination that the other character can't see. And that's really cool. That could set in some dread, that could set in some uncomfortability. Like I said, the far less video gamey, more movie like Dark Pictures trilogy. You know, they do co-op. Like that is also kind of hard to be fully immersed and scared when you're playing with your friends, but that does some interesting ideas. But that's because
Yeah.
it's definitely more movie like than it is video gamey. And it's the issue. That's why Dead Space didn't work because or Dead Space 3 didn't work because it's like, oh well, it's still a video game. We can't let the player ever forget that they're playing a video game. And in the sense, and that's completely funny because in horror games, I feel horror games are the closest to having a movie-like story without forgetting that's a video game. It's like
Right.
the only video games I feel like could properly work but still haven't worked as a movie is horror games because it's like, well, the interactivity isn't too important. Like sometimes they'll take advantage of the interactivity, but like the Silent Hill story could still work if it weren't a video game, I feel. It just has to be done right. And unfortunately, it wasn't done right. It was done very, very messy.
Much without following much of the game's original plot besides like, oh, here's the cult, up here's the character, this is what happens, and here's our own twist on it.
It's
It was
just
bad.
it's just so funny how fucked the Silent Hill movies are. But like I said, that's a topic for when we do the video game movie episode. But like I said, like that's a really cool idea. Like, oh, Isaac will see a hallucination that Carver doesn't see. Carver will vice versa see a hallucination that doesn't happen. There could be the idea that like I said, the fact that both players could play exactly the same also messed it up. It's like you both felt like you were pretty strong and you really could handle just about anything. It'd be cool if the characters couldn't do one thing and you had to rely on your partner to do that, or and vice versa. But instead, it was just like Resident Evil 5, where it's like you're both pretty overpowered and you could just you could take on the whole world by yourself if need be.
The moment anyone brings up Resident Evil 5, because my brother was obsessed with that game, the moment anyone brings it up, I immediately just hear, Chris, Sheva, and I'm like, dear God, shut up. Back, demons. Back to the pits of my mind.
And like there's that, like, like Resident Evil, like, whether you truly believe it is 100% better as a horror story, or if it's better that it leans into the weird American action stereotypes. It's
Honestly,
like,
I think it threads the needle very well. Because there are moments of suspense in Resident Evil games that like keep you on your toes, but then there is just moments of, and now you use a bazooka to explode the giant zombie, and it's like it makes the intense parts worth it. It has a good reward for all the things that you do. It's like suffer through nightmares, suffer through horrors, suffer through abominations, feel freaked out, get jump scared on occasion, deal with lickers, which are, God, whoever made that knew what they were doing, and they didn't like me specifically, but you get the reward of, okay, you dealt with all the spooky shit, here's a bazooka, here's a flamethrower, here's a friend that you can yell their name at incessantly because they're not coming to your specific location to help boost you up right now this minute, do some dumb actiony stuff, punch a boulder, and then go back to some intense shit. And it's like, there's a good way to balance things. It doesn't have to always be intense.
Exactly. It's when Resident Evil starts to lose that campiness that it loses what it is, and it's unfortunate because Resident Evil is such a weird franchise that there's so many different camps of the fan base, and none of them want to acknowledge that the other one exists. Like there are people who like the tank controls. There are people who didn't like the tank controls. There are people who like it more campy. There are people who want it to be more scary. And it's like because they all fail to acknowledge each other, Capcom will just try to please everybody and thus please nobody.
I think they found a
I'm
decent
a
equilibrium.
diehard Resident Evil fan. I will ride and die with this series.
But speaking of co-op and Resident Evil, though, what happened to the Resident Evil co-op game that came out and that everyone complained about?
Oh, that's not a co-op game.
6. I don't
That's
know.
well, there is a co-op
Resistance?
one, and then there's also another one.
Am I thinking of the wrong thing?
I'm not sure.
I just remember there was that one like zombie co-op game that came out where it's like pick a survivor, go through a thing. There's
Okay, yeah, no, that's an RE3 remake attachment.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah,
what
Resident Evil
happened to it?
Resistance.
Because
It exists.
It lived for like a day, and then I haven't seen anything about it.
It's like every other like extra thing. It's just there.
I think it's still going. I think they went through their round of updates and shit, adding stuff, but I don't know how it's doing. I haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah.
I know they released Nemesis and Nikolai as characters, so and also some extra dudes too. But yeah, that game that multiplayer attachment is it's interesting, but at the same time it was not what people were asking for. But it was basically their reason to justify, hey, if you buy Resident Evil 3, which is arguably a shorter experience than Resident Evil 2, you could at least have this multiplayer thing you can play.
Yeah.
And I did play it. It's fun, but I don't know.
Yeah.
If I actually had my PlayStation Plus subscription, then I'd probably be more consistent at it. But I only played it for the month that I had it.
It's just a weird decision,
So,
right? To make Resident Evil 3 an arguably like way longer game than 2 into this super fucking condensed short experience.
It did
yeah,
feel weird to watch. Because, like, when we got to the end, I was kind of like, that's it? Like, we're
yeah,
already
that's
at the end?
all right. Resident Evil 3 is like another topic in itself because I can talk about that shit all day. But
I mean, we can talk
um,
about Resident Evil as a franchise in general, like at some point, yeah, for sure. Especially
But
because like
yeah,
we'll get another one eventually.
but before we move on, what were you gonna say? When I was saying that they don't please anybody at the same time they please everybody. Shiny, you were gonna say something. You said you felt.
Hmm?
You,
I
you,
feel like they've hit like a nice equilibrium when it comes to like the pleasing of everybody. Like, well, RE2 remake and also RE8, like that feels good to me. Feels nice. I have the same thing with Revelations and RE7. It's like as long as they still have the like third person horror one, and then they can have their like whatever the
yeah.
hell crazy first person thing, like I'm okay with it. I
No,
think that's okay.
absolutely. Like, if they did that, like if they pulled a Yakuza, like, oh, here's Judgment for the more action-based gameplay, and then Yakuza will continue as an RPG.
Yep.
If they did that, they would be much more successful. But like I say, it's the fact that they keep blurring the lines because Resident Evil 7 was a much slower paced game than Resident Evil 8. And we're obviously going to get to the most polarizing. We're going to remake the most polarizing Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 4, which is the reason why the series is so jumbled and different
I
now.
mean, we'll be seeing that in some days now.
It's so funny because like no matter what happened, Resident Evil 4 was going to be a polarizing game. We had the Hookman beta that implied Leon would fight Ghost. We had the entirety of Devil May Cry spin-off from early beta of Resident Evil 4. It's like, yeah, we were gonna like all the shit that you could do and Devil May Cry was gonna be a Resident Evil game, and that's fucking insane to think about like Leon doing all the shit that Dante could do.
God, I would have loved for those builds, man.
And
The
then we
fucking
finally got
Hookman
the Resident Evil
and
4 that
shit.
we all know today, which is a lot more action packed, which Leon can suplex things. Remember little ooh woo baby Leon who's so fucking stupid in Resident Evil 2? Well, now he's a confident badass and he's the sole person the president of the United States trusts in getting his daughter back. It's like the tone is completely different. It is so fucking polarizing and hilarious just how different Resident Evil 4 is. So it's like, are we going to go back to Resident Evil 7 and try to be more slow paced and scary? Or are we going to continue the path of 8 and make it more action packed? And is Leon going to be. Because, like, there's so many people that are adamant that, oh, we need the extreme camp that Resident Evil 4 had. And if you make Remake 4 anything besides that, it's going to be a failure. And that's really weird to think about. It's like, why can't it just be a bit slower like Resident Evil 2 Remake? Like, why does it need to keep the weird polarizingness? Like, you have Resident Evil 4, you have Resident Evil 4 on just about every console possible. Like, there's like, it's not a game that is not heavily preserved. You can play that at any point in time. It's like if they are to remake 4, I want it to be different from the one we got because the one we got is so fucking hilarious and weird. It's like it would be kind of interesting to see them try to make a more slow paced Resident Evil 4 because the one we have it exists. Like for most people, like I don't believe so. I don't believe anything is perfect, but for most people, they believe Resident Evil 4 is perfect. So it's like why would you want them to literally remake the same game? Like, wouldn't you want them to make it different this time around?
They should just remake Resident Evil 0, honestly.
I want to see Becky Chambers again. I need to see Billy Cohen again.
Exactly. And if you add actual proper co-op to that, that would actually be a fun experience.
That would also be cool. That would be cool if we have an overhaul of the zapping system, and then also just the co-op option to where like you could have both players running around the train. That'd be
I was about to
cool.
say a functioning box.
Functioning box. It would also be cool if they pulled a final fight and like we reestablished Billy Cohen in a future Resident Evil game, and just like fucking Cody Travers, he's like the mayor of a city or something. Like that'd be so funny. Like if Billy turns his life around because we haven't heard anything. Like he just went off the map. Like I would just love if we reestablished Billy Cohen and he's just like Cody in Street Fighter Five. It's like yeah, no, he really fixed himself after the events of Zero. Like, good for him. That'd be funny.
I mean, personally, I'm not much for Zero as far as remakes are concerned. I'm more in the boat of Code Veronica needs like
Oh, absolutely.
something.
Yeah,
Yes.
Code Veronica too, man.
Code Veronica really needs it, and I don't know why that's become a controversial topic as of recently.
I think it's because there's just been a lot of remakes in general.
Yeah,
So
but people
people
are
are like, please just make a new game.
yeah.
People
No,
don't
make
want
it
Code Veronica because they wanted RE4 for whatever reason. Despite
Yeah, but,
claiming
like,
the game is
what
so fucking great, they wanted a remake so goddamn bad, and it's like, what about a remake for the game that was bad?
Maybe they
Yeah,
want a remake
like-
for 4 so that we can finally escape the brown and gray nightmare. That
Yeah.
game is not exactly what I would call a piece of art.
Like I said, it's not perfect, but for most people, they consider it perfect. So it's like, well, then why would you want a remake for it if you consider it perfect already, you dumbass?
It's kind of like okay, that I believe is basically the problem with Final Fantasy VII and people asking for a remake, because everyone's like, Final Fantasy VII's perfect, exactly the way it is. But these motherfuckers have been asking for a remake for years and are never satisfied with what they get, no matter how many times it's been re-released and remastered and blah 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 blah. And then when
Needs
they
to
did
be
do
remade,
a remake,
but it also needs to be the exact same as it was from my
Exactly.
childhood, or I'm gonna piss my pants.
and it's like, yeah, well, if it was exactly the same as your childhood, guess what? Barrett would be a raging racist, Cloud would be boring, Tifa and Aerith would be questionable at times on many, many occasions. Aerith would basically be the best character until she gets brainwashed randomly midway through the game and just leaves your party to be like, I must go die now. I've lost all personality. And it's like, what the fuck? And yeah, so no,
think
you
the
don't
people
actually
screaming
want the
for
game
that-
from your childhood. You want a fictionalized version that you've built up in your head that can never truly be achieved again.
I think honestly, the people asking for remakes are the ones that are like, I just want prettier graphics, and also just be accessible. But at the same
Mods on
time,
PC.
it's definitely those people who are like
Yes.
obsessed with it and want it to be perfect.
Yeah, but they're just like, it's not the same though, and it's like, yeah, it
I'd
can't
have to pay
be the
$60
same anymore.
for
It's
it.
cumbersome.
Imagine that.
Yeah, for me, my preferred idea of a remake is something that does something we're familiar with but different, but it keeps the spirit. Like, you need to just keep the idea, the spirit. It's like, do something different with it, different enough to where it's like, oh, you're experiencing it again in a new format, as opposed to just here's the same thing literally again. Like remakes and remasters, there's a very stark difference between them. Like there's the complete remastering remake that was the SpongeBob game. It's like, oh, we added a few new things, but for the most part, it's the exact same game. It looks prettier, and like there's nothing wrong with those kind of remakes. But then, like I said, you have things like that. Like I said, we're gonna have our RE4 remake. We have RE2 remake, which keeps the spirit of RE2, but it does its own thing. There's a lot of new things. There's new bells and
Exactly.
and that's the perfect kind of remake. It makes it look prettier than the old one, but like it doesn't erase what made the old one the old one. It's a happy medium between the new modern technology that we have nowadays, but it still keeps in some of the slower paced puzzle solving of Resident Evil. It's for me the perfect medium between the more action heavy 4 and 5 and 6 and the older tankier puzzly 1, 2, and 3.
We were talking about all of these other MMOs and bring up like things that are dead as hell. Your Club Penguins, your Towns, the only way they're living is through fan servers. Meanwhile, Roblox, I have experience with it back in like 2010 to 2015-ish. And it was a significantly different game back then because it was just successfully moderated. It's like it's not moderated. It's not moderated anymore, but there's so many workarounds now that like people just use the workarounds all the time. And there's a significant issue with the economy on site that's gotten out of hand. People have compared it to NFTs.
Good times.
Oof.
Because it's like it's got one of those cosmetic resale markets built in, so people are just using that to extort children. They're also, because you can get paid for making a game on there, they're using that to extort children. It's a big mess now. I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't not a mess when I was playing it, but everything was so much more rudimentary back then that like creating a game on it when I was playing it was just a matter of like sort of like a child building a fort and then letting everybody have access to the fort. Now you've got straight up like these people are developing whole games.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically just a game engine at this point, honestly. You have the
Game
tools to make
engine
stuff.
MMO,
I
which
mean,
is the weirdest thing.
There was a lot of those kind of like game engine games, like way back in the day. Like Warcraft was definitely like one of them. Like there's just a lot of like creativity going around, and there still is to this day. Like lots of people are using games to make games, and it's
Which is great, but the sad part is that it leads to exploitation.
yeah. Lately, a lot of companies have caught on to that, and are like, well, if you do something, we own it, and it's like, well, fuck off. Frankly,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, it sucks to see mod makers pour their heart and soul into making mods that literally fix games or make them way more entertaining, only for the game company to be like, nice idea, we're gonna do that but worse, and make it like a paid DLC, and also we're gonna like destroy your mod, make it illegal, delete it, etc., whatever, turn it into like a cheat considered thing, so that people have no choice but to go to us, the official source. And it's like, fuck, why didn't you just pay the mod maker? Doing a better
Yeah.
job than you.
Which is so weird for like probably one guy who managed to fix everything for the said mod, and then it's just like a company of like 300 people can't do it. It's
It
so
is
weird.
especially sad
Yeah.
because like you have like the thing about Roblox is it, like I said, it's basically an MMO game builder. Like people make teams and work together to do it, and it's like that could be such a powerful creative tool. And like
Yeah.
people coming together is one of the reasons why I enjoy playing like things like Minecraft or other like online games. That's one of the great things about co-op is when you can literally build or create something together and just put your creative minds together, go nuts. But the tragic part is that like it's just becoming, hey, how do we exploit this for profit the most? And it's like, goddamn, just let people make things.
Yeah.
And I
With
remember
that
when
with
Minecraft came out. Did you know there was a beef between the Minecraft and Roblox communities? Like people
yeah.
considered them similar enough that like people were like "Dude, Roblox is better than Minecraft. Minecraft is better than Roblox. I'm gonna make Minecraft on Roblox. It was a strange time.
Roblox is an entirely different beast, man.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, but
so fucking
children
different.
equated the same thing because both
Yeah,
blocky. It was very funny.
exactly. The fact that there's even like MMO-s games on Roblox to begin with is kind of insane. Cause I have
Mm.
friends who have been getting into Roblox again, and they've been playing like this like dinosaur like MMO-esque game. It's so fucking weird, but it's like I don't know how you do it, but sure, you made an MMO with dinosaurs in it. That's really fucking cool.
And it's probably inspired by that Ark game, and it's a just a it's sort of a continuation from where Roblox started, which was you would have a lot of servers that were basically just set pieces, and people would come in and role play set pieces with costumes, and people would just you know role play things out. Now people are adding whole animations and stuff, and it's becoming like a actual game.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, people have basically remade Friday Night Funkin' in Roblox in multiple different servers.
The most famous one is the Counter-Strike like game. That one was like the first
that
one to
makes
be
sense.
really like very similar to the game it was simulating
I
Right.
to the
remember there being
extent
a
that people would
Pokemon
just
one
go there
too.
to play that game for free.
That's fun. I don't feel like playing Counter Strike. I'll just play
Must.
Counter Strike in Roblox.
Yep.
Man, I've only ever remember playing Roblox back in the day, and I had like my own little world. I put zombies in it, I put guns, and I was like, ah, zombie game, yay! Someone actually remade a good chunk of the village from Resident Evil 4, and I played through that. It was interesting. Wouldn't call it. It functioned, but not well. But that
It's
was
hilarious that
base.
anything functions in Roblox's thing because the movement system that comes like vanilla in it is bad.
It's pretty bad. I mean, this was back in like 2012 or something. But seeing Roblox now is like, holy shit, this is like an actual improvement.
In Roblox, has always again
Obstacle
been
courses.
interesting because it's just one of those like yeah, just make your own game things. And for me, like the game that did that the first time, after Minecraft, obviously, because like everybody has fucking played Minecraft at some point in the early 2000s, was Little Big Planet.
Oh
Like
yeah,
that was a
I was never
crazy
a
one.
PlayStation kid, so I missed the train on that one.
That's fair. It was really neat. There was a lot of like mechanics they put in the game that allowed for a lot of creativity with like game creation. It was a very, very neat little thing, and it's a shame that it died because apparently it didn't make as much money as I guess Uncharted. So
Ooh, yeah. I never played Little Big Planet because yeah, I chose an Xbox over a PS3. So only reason why I did that was because of Resident Evil 5, but we're not going back on that tangent. But I do own Little Big Planet 3, but I never played it beyond like the first 5 levels. That's my tangent.
Anyway, I think we've
Yeah.
kept you here long enough talking about MMOs, co-op things, a million other things. So this has been the first episode of Dude Talk, and we're going to be signing off and seeing you again later. Thank you all for watching or listening, likely.
See y'all later.
Bye.
Later.
it's been a pleasure.